Story 1. I threw a birthday party for my husband and exposed his 10-year affair with a secret wife and son with a custom cake. He lost a huge business deal, and now everyone's saying I went too far. Hi, so for context, my husband Robbie and I have been married for 3 years. He and I are both 31, and we have known each other for almost 10 years now. I met him at my first job, and we became friends because both of us were right out of college and we were the newbies at our company. We struck up a friendship and remained friends for a couple of years before he asked me out when our internship was about to end. We dated for a couple of months when we were in our early 20s, but it fizzled out soon enough, and we ended up breaking up. But then we met again at a friend's party when we were around 25, and we then rekindled our relationship. Both of us told each other that we had dated a couple of people in the middle, but things never really seemed to work out with those people. And maybe the reason behind it was that we were meant to be together, which is why we had run into each other after so long at one of the most unexpected places. Because we didn't really have a lot of common friends. So we decided to give things another chance, and this time both of us were grown up as compared to earlier. So we made it work. After being together for 3 years and having lived together for 1, we agreed that it was about time to get married because things were going well and it just felt right. There was no formal proposal as such. We just sort of came to an agreement about it. Anyway, 3 years ago, we got married, and things have been great since then. That's not to say that he and I don't fight. Like any other couple, we also have had our ups and downs, but we always make up. His behavior around me has always been normal, and I have never really suspected anything because I trust him, and I didn't think that he would ever lie to me about anything because I like to think of myself as a very understanding person. So he wouldn't ever feel the need to lie about the big stuff. So after what I found out recently, my head was turned, and I honestly didn't know how to react to any of it because finding out that your husband has a whole separate family that he has kept a secret from you for as long as you have been together is never an easy thing to come to terms with. And because of the emotional devastation, I might have done something and gone overboard with my revenge or whatever. At least that's what people are telling me. But I don't see anything wrong with what I did. Everyone thinks that I should have just dealt with this in person instead of airing our dirty laundry among friends and family and even a couple of his business associates. So I just want to know if I did the right thing, and that's why I'm here right now. It all started a few weeks ago. Robbie was turning 31, and I wanted to celebrate his birthday, but unfortunately, he told me that he had to go away on a business trip that week and he wouldn't be here for his birthday. I was a little bummed out because I was looking forward to celebrating that day with him, since I'm the kind of person who makes a big deal out of birthdays. But then I had a bright idea, and I decided that I was going to surprise him on his birthday by showing up at the hotel that he was staying in, and I decided to make it easier. I would speak to his secretary and make the necessary arrangements. Both my husband and I run businesses. I run an electronics store, and he has a PR agency. But the difference is that I started mine a couple of years ago, and he inherited his dad's business. And that's why he's a lot more successful as a businessman than I am. Because I'm just starting out on my own, and well, he already has everything laid out for him because his dad did a lot of work in his time, and they were already a flourishing business when he took over. But I have never held that against him, and I am actually happy for his success. I've never been jealous of him or anything because I know that I am his wife, and we are a team. His successes and failures are both mine, and it's supposed to go both ways. I'm mentioning this part now because it comes up later, so I thought I'll just get it out of the way. Anyway, I spoke to Robbie's secretary and told her that I was planning to surprise him on his birthday by showing up at the hotel, and I told her to make the necessary arrangements. She did so gladly and told me that she had booked a room for 2 and had also notified the hotel front desk staff about this surprise, so they would let me up into his room when I showed up, and that was it. It was all arranged, and I was quite excited about it because I thought it was a brilliant plan, and we hadn't taken a vacation together for a really long time, so we could turn his business trip into a mini vacation or maybe a staycation. Even on the day that he left for his business trip, everything was fine, and he told me that he loved me and everything. I couldn't have ever known what he was up to behind my back if he didn't slack off on the day of his birthday and I didn't happen to be at the right place at the right time. His birthday was 2 days after the day that he was supposed to leave for his trip, and I flew out on the morning of his birthday to surprise him. When I reached the hotel, it was around 2 in the afternoon, and I knew that by then whatever meetings he had for the day were over because Robbie doesn't meet anybody after 12 o'clock, and everything else that he had scheduled for the day would start after 4 o'clock. So I had enough time. I went up to the room, and I had a key card of my own since the room had been booked for the two of us. But even when I took the key from the receptionists, things were kind of weird for me because they were shooting me really strange looks that I couldn't make sense of. But I didn't think much of it, and I just headed up to his room. However, when I got there, I noticed that the door of his room was slightly ajar, and I could look inside without much of an effort. That was important because I could hear voices coming from the room, and it was weird because I could hear a woman's voice and a child's voice as well, and as far as I was concerned, he had no business hanging out with a mother and a child. When I peeked in, my worst fears were confirmed, and I saw Robbie sitting on the bed and playing with a little boy while a woman around my age was seated on the edge of the bed. And all of them looked really carefree and happy. The boy couldn't have been older than maybe 5 or 6, and I didn't get a good look, but Robbie and that boy were playing something on his iPad. There was a lot of laughter, and I'm not an idiot. I instantly recognized what was going on. I had read enough books and watched enough movies to know what was happening here, and I didn't want to stick around to find out more about it. So I decided to make a run for it before any of them opened the door and found me outside it. But before that, I had enough presence of mind to make sure to get a picture of it on my phone, and then I started running. I also thought that maybe if I didn't confront the problem, it would go away. But of course, that's not how it works. I literally ran out of the hotel, took the first cab that I could find, and rushed back to the airport. I booked a seat on the first flight that I could find to go back home and only had to wait for around 2 hours for it to take off. I think that I pretty much went through all the 5 stages of grief in those 2 hours because I just couldn't accept what I had seen. And suddenly the looks that the receptionists had been shooting me made a lot more sense. I was rattled to the very core, and I tried to make sense of what I had seen. I even tried to come up with perfectly innocent explanations, but none of it added up. Towards the end, I was forced to admit that Robbie had a secret family that I knew nothing about, and that was just the truth. It was a horrifying realization, and I was in denial of it for a couple of hours, but no matter how much I wanted to, I couldn't run away from the truth. After I got home that day, I started thinking about what I was supposed to do next because there was no way that I was staying with him anymore. I knew I had seen that if I confronted him about it, he would just come up with some story to defend himself. I, being the emotional fool that I am, would probably buy it and give him a second chance, and I didn't want to risk it in the slightest. Just to be on the safe side, I decided to do some digging of my own, and I knew that if he had a son and a partner, there were bound to be financial records of something or the other so I could catch him in his lie. So I talked to his secretary, and I told her that I needed his financial report for the past 3 years urgently. She and I are on good terms, and I just made up some story about how I needed it because I wanted our lawyer to look through it in case of some discrepancies and reassured her that my husband had asked for it because the company was about to be audited, and he didn't want his personal expenses to have any mismatch either. So she sent the records to me, and I had my lawyer look through all his bank statements for the past few years and realized that every month there was a huge payment that was released from his end and was received by an account that was located in the very place that he claimed to be going for business trips quite frequently. I had just figured that maybe he had some important client there, which is why he had to visit them every month. But now everything was much more clear to me, and it all made sense. I spoke to a well-known divorce attorney right after I found out the truth and filed for a divorce. After I had made sure that there was no way he was not cheating on me with a secret family, I decided that I was not going to let this slide. Call me crazy, but my first instinct when I confirmed that he was visiting his other family was not to feel bad about it, but to feel pure hatred and rage and the desire to get revenge on him. I had cried enough about it. I just wanted to get back at him and get it over with. So for the next couple of days, I pretended that everything was fine and that I was just in love with him as I had been before I found out the truth. I had been ignoring him for 2 days after I came back from my visit, but then I resumed my normal behavior so that he wouldn't suspect anything, and I also made sure that his secretary kept her mouth shut about everything so she wouldn't ask him anything about the surprise, and told her that I hadn't actually been able to visit him because I got sick. And I told her not to mention any of it to Robbie so he wouldn't worry. And she didn't, thankfully. I did everything in my control to make sure that he wouldn't find out about my visit and wouldn't suspect anything. In the meantime, I continued to plan for the real surprise that I was going to give him when he came back from his trip. A few days ago, he finally came back, and I had to pretend to be in love with him and act like I missed him, knowing what I knew, which was very difficult, and I was sick to my stomach doing it. But I had to put up an act, and I had to be convincing at it because I didn't want him to miss the party that I had organized for him. The evening that he came back, I had invited all our friends, family, and some of his coworkers and business associates to have dinner with us. I also knew that he had been trying to crack a deal with a very well-known industrialist, and I invited him as well because I wanted to hurt Robbie. I didn't really think things through, if I'm being honest. I just was too caught up in the idea of getting revenge and hurting him just as much as he had hurt me, and didn't think about the consequences of my actions. So, anyway, I had everyone come over, and everybody was there. I brought my husband out into the living room and told him that this was a surprise birthday party for him. Everybody greeted him and stuff, and once that was over, I brought out the best part of the party. The part that I was the most excited about was the cake, because in the spirit of revenge and exposing him in his dirty little secret, I had decided to get that image of him with his other family that I had clicked from outside the hotel room digitally printed on the cake. When I uncovered it, everyone was shocked, most of all Robbie, because I could tell from his face that he had not been expecting this. His face fell, and he kept looking at the floor as if it was going to open up and swallow him or whatever. But unfortunately, none of that was going to happen. He had been caught in his lies, and there was no hiding it anymore. But when I started talking, he still tried to tell me to stop and said that he would do anything to keep me from spilling the beans. It was just a last-ditch desperate effort to keep this a secret, but I think everybody in the room had already figured out what was going on by then. They were just waiting around for me to confirm it, and I was not going to deny them the pleasure of that. So for the first time in my life, I told Robbie to shut up and let me talk because he was not going to get away with what he did, and I was going to make sure of it. I told everybody that I had gone digging through his financial records, and I had found out that he had been sending money every month to his other family, and this went back almost a decade. This meant that throughout the time that he had been with me, he had been hiding a secret family from me and had been cheating on me all along. I looked at him to confirm the story or try to deny it when the proof was so clearly placed in front of us on the cake. But he just stood there and refused to say a word. But I kept taunting him, asking him to speak up and give us all an explanation because I wanted him to feel as humiliated as I had felt when I showed up at his hotel room and saw him chilling with some other family. And at one point, I think I finally broke him, and he cracked and started talking. He lost his mind and started yelling at me, saying that yes, he did have another family, but it was none of my business, and that he regretted the fact that he married me instead of Elena, who I can only assume is his affair partner. I was quite shocked by that outburst, but I stood my ground, and we got into a nasty fight in front of all his friends and family and his business associates as well. He told me that he had been seeing Elena before he met me and reconnected with me, but things had just been casual with her, and they were not very serious, which is why he asked me out again, and we got together. But a few months after we got together again, Elena contacted him to tell him that she was pregnant and wanted an answer as to whether he was willing to be a part of the child's life or not. He said he had wanted to tell me about it and be honest with me, but he didn't want to risk it and jeopardize our relationship again because he really liked me, and he wasn't sure if I would still stay with him once I found out that he was going to have a baby with another woman before me. So he thought that he would hide it for a couple of months at least until the child was born. But then months turned into years, and the longer he waited to tell me, the more awkward it became, and then before he knew it, we were getting married, and there was just no way he could bring it up now without breaking my heart. So he just never told me, and that's how I had to find out. He also mentioned that the affair with Elena was a recent development and that had started only a couple of months ago, but before that, they only had a strictly platonic co-parenting arrangement. But for the past few months, they had been seeing each other more often because he was sick of me. Elena knew about me, and she had no problem with it because he had promised her that he was going to leave me when the time was right and had made up his mind that he was going to file for divorce soon because apparently I am crazy and I don't deserve to be with him anyway. And he said all this, or rather screamed all of this, right in my face in front of all the guests. So suffice it to say, I had intended to humiliate him at the party, but that was a bit humiliating for me as well. However, I still had the divorce papers that I had filed for, and as soon as he said that he was going to file for divorce, I went into my study and brought my papers out and then shoved them at him and told him that I had already beaten him to it. Then I walked out of the party to my car and started driving. I had already packed a few of my things in a bag and stashed it in the car for a quick getaway, and I also knew which hotel I was going to be at for the next few weeks. My blood was boiling, so I didn't check my messages or notifications for the next couple of hours. But when I did, I realized that most people agreed that I had taken it way too far. There were messages from my friends who said that while they understood my anger and resentment against Robbie, throwing a party just with the purpose of humiliating was a little too much, and they think I owed him an apology because apparently he lost the business deal that he was working on because of me. My parents also felt the same way, and I was just surprised that so many people were on his side when he was the one who cheated on me. They had the same reason as well. They said that it was unfair because he lost a huge deal because of me, and he could even sue me for defamation if he wanted to. So it would be in my best interest to apologize to him and tell him that I just lost my mind for a bit after I found out that he was not being honest with me. However, I don't think that he can file any sort of lawsuit against me because whatever I said at the party was true, and more importantly, I really don't think that I owe him any sort of apology because if he didn't want to get caught and humiliated, he probably shouldn't have cheated on me. And as for the deal that he lost, I also think that is his own fault because I didn't make him cheat on me and turn out to be a dishonest, lying piece of crap. Apparently, after I left, everybody started clearing out almost immediately, and Robbie tried to stop the CEO of the firm that I had mentioned before, who he had been trying to crack a deal with. Everything that just happened was obviously very embarrassing, but he still couldn't let the deal go to waste because he had been working for months to crack it. So he tried to stop the guy and talk to him, but I guess he didn't want to work with Robbie anymore because of what just happened. The rejection was quite public as well, and apparently the CEO guy told my husband as politely and gently as he could that he believed it would be for the best if he focused on his personal life just now. And since his firm was a pretty huge account, he didn't believe it was his cup of tea right now and the deal would go to somebody else. And then he left. And as soon as he left, Robbie broke down into tears, and some of the guests stayed back to comfort him. I find it all a bit ridiculous if I'm being honest because he lost everything because of his own behavior and his own infidelity. I think it's really unfair to blame me for any of this, and yet that's what people are doing. I can't make sense of it, but I'm getting sick of people blaming me. Ever since I left the house, people have been texting me and telling me that what I did was messed up and that I need to make amends for it. Worst of all, my parents think that I am at fault, and I am really at a loss for what to do. I really don't think that Robbie deserves an apology. That's not happening. But I also feel bad because everybody's just being really harsh on me. So am I the a-hole for throwing a party just to humiliate my husband and expose his dirty little secret when I found out that he had a secret family? Update 1. Hello? Thank you so much for all the support in the comments of my original post. I am glad to hear that a lot of people agree that I shouldn't have held back, but what I did was perfectly right. I feel the same way, obviously. This is why I have decided that I'm going to cut everybody out of my life if they continue to tell me that I am the one at fault for this because I'm getting really sick of taking the fall when I'm not even the one who cheated. To be honest, I wish I could show my parents and a few of my friends some of the responses and comments that I got on my original post about people saying how they would have gone scorched earth and that they would have taken it even further than me, so they would really understand how bad it was to get betrayed by your husband of 3 years and partner of almost 6 years to find out that everything that you had believed for so long was just a lie. I don't think anybody knows how I'm feeling right now, so they don't have the right to judge me and make me feel bad about everything that I did. I'll admit that I thought humiliating him would make me feel better, but it didn't. But that doesn't mean that what I did was wrong in any sense of the word. Now that the party is over and I don't have anything to plan, I just have the divorce to look forward to. I'm having to deal with the full emotional impact of what has happened and what is going to happen in the future. And I can tell you guys it's not easy, and I don't need people to make it more difficult for me by telling me that I'm wrong and that I need to apologize and stupid stuff like that. If they can't understand where I'm coming from and why I was so angry, that's fine. But they do not have the right to make me feel worse and try to portray me as a bad guy even in a situation where I am clearly the victim. I haven't been responding to any messages because most of them are just telling me that my soon-to-be ex-husband is miserable and it's all my fault. I don't need to hear it, but now I have decided that I'm going to respond to each and every single person who texted me and tell them that if they don't shut up, then I will just block them and move on and never speak to them again. So if that's what they want, they can continue to take his side and try to make me the bad guy, but they want me to be a part of their lives. They're going to have to apologize to me and tell me that they were wrong. I'm not going to excuse people defending a cheater and still have any access to me anymore. That's not happening. Update 2. So I received Robbie's response to the divorce papers today, and my lawyer told me that he had consented to a mutual divorce. And I was honestly very relieved because it's all happening on my terms, so there won't be much of a problem during the negotiations. I also told my parents and a couple of my friends what I had said I would tell them in my last update, and most of them did not speak to me, but I'm fine with that. It's very obvious that they were never my friends in the first place, and they were all Robbie's friends. My parents, however, came to their senses and apologized to me. They said that they just felt bad for Robbie because he was devastated after I revealed his secret because apparently he had put a lot of work to hide it, and that was quite obvious. And his parents were also very upset because they believe that it was none of my business. I don't even know why they think it's none of my business because I'm literally his wife. It is most certainly my business if my husband has another family that he's not telling me about. But whatever. I don't even care what his family thinks of me anymore because they had been helping him to hide it all along. I'm really glad that he lost the deal that he had been working on. He deserves it. And I honestly hope that every bad thing happens to him now because I'm not a large-hearted person who wishes the best for the people who have done me wrong. I wish the worst for him because he is the worst, and also for anybody who went against me and told me that I was wrong here. They can all go jump off a cliff for all I care. I'm going to continue to defend what I did because even before I had done it, I did not think there was anything wrong with it. I did not think there was anything wrong with what I was doing even while I was doing it. And even now it's the same, so everybody can take a hike. Robbie got what he deserved, and I'm going to hope that he learns a lesson from this. Update 3. Hey, so it's been almost a year since I filed for divorce from Robbie, and it came through about 6 months ago. We were done with our marriage as soon as the waiting period was over, and now I am free as a bird. I heard that he moved Elena and his son down here, and they are all living together now. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me anymore because I'm also doing a lot better than him. My business really took off a couple of months ago, and we are doing great. I live in a much better house now, and I have everything that I could ask for. I'm not dating anybody right now because I'm just so busy, but it's very much on the table for me in the future. And I know that everything will fall back into place eventually. I'm glad that Robbie showed me his true colors because if he hadn't, then maybe I wouldn't have this life right now because I really threw myself into my work after the divorce. I'm honestly just grateful for everything, and now I know that whatever happened for the best. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Toxic mom and sister convinced my husband to steal our savings for her lavish dream vacation. I discovered his affair with them both, and now they're teaming up against me. Hello, everyone. You can all call me OP36F. I have found myself in quite a difficulty and I could desperately use any advice or support right now. My entire marriage and family have crumbled from the inside out. There's a lot of history I need to go over, so please bear with me. This is going to be a lengthy post. My entitled sister Laura, 33F, and my overbearing and demeaning mom, 64F, have always been a thorn in my side. But for the sake of the peace of the family, I've always done my best to put up with it. I was never physically abused, so I have that going for me at least. But Laura and Mom are almost what I'd call toxic twins, who have inflicted a lot of emotional turmoil upon me. They are just two peas in a pod, and I've always been the odd person out. Since I was the eldest sibling, Laura was pampered and showered with attention, while I was often left to fend for myself. I'm so different from these two. I sometimes question if I'm even from the same family. It didn't help that our father died in a boating accident when I was a little girl, and Mom did not handle it well at all. I do not begrudge her for the grief she felt, as the whole family was feeling it as well, but I do resent Mom for how she chose to handle things. Mom started drinking too much and popping pills, and it started bringing out the worst in her. My childhood and teenage years were an emotional roller coaster, and I carry a lot of traumas from these events to this day. It seemed like Laura had it easier than I did in every way. She always had the best birthday parties, the best birthday presents, the best of everything. It used to drive me crazy. However, it's not so black and white. I've had good times with Laura and Mom, but they are just too emotionally draining for me. They are always in some sort of drama. Their lives seem to be in a continuous state of disorder. So while I have remained present in their lives, I often find myself requiring at least some emotional distance so I don't get too sucked into their drama. Yet, time and time again, it seems like I keep getting roped in. It's almost like Laura and Mom are tornadoes of drama. Until today and the events that have rocked the foundations of my world, I at least considered my husband Billy, 32M, a source of comfort, my rock amidst the chaos of the world. For all his faults, of which there are indeed many, he has remained something of a relief throughout dealing with all of Laura and Mom's behavioral irregularities. I know Mom is quite a bit to be blamed for when it comes to how Laura turned out in life, but Laura is 33 years old now, so she's a grown woman who is responsible for her actions. No matter how much sympathy I try to have for her, she takes heavily from Mom when it comes to her tendency toward poor decisions and staying in a world of self-imposed drama. She's only 3 years younger than me, yet she has somehow gone through 3 husbands and just divorced her 4th husband, someone who struck me as a truly nice person named Scoop, 36M. I know it's in bad form to talk this way about your own sister's husband, but since they divorced, I don't mind admitting he seemed like quite a catch. He was handsome and charming and seemed like far too nice of a person to be married to a selfish, entitled clown like my sister Laura. He was always doing nice things for her, and Laura and Mom were always talking about him behind his back and bad-mouthing him. Laura had the nerve to cheat on Scoop, just as she has been unfaithful to all her previous husbands and just about every man she's dated as well. That's the type of person Laura is. She just looks out for number one, and the number one in her mind is her. She thinks the planet simply orbits around her every whim. It's ridiculous. Laura sadly inherited Mom's love of drugs and alcohol at a young age, and this has had a severe impact on her behavior towards others as well. Don't get me wrong, people are often sympathetic towards addicts and wish all drug addicts to get the help they need. But I fear someone like Laura simply does not have it in her to take accountability and responsibility for her actions. I fear she will never get the help she truly needs because she does not have a desire nor a motivation to change her wicked ways. Due to Laura's love of drugs and alcohol, as well as her tendency to get the short end of the financial stick when it comes to divorce due to her obvious infidelities, she has spent most of her life living in her childhood bedroom at Mom's house. Sometimes she will spend some time rooming with me at my apartment and taking advantage of my friendliness and compassion when Laura and Mom have a booze-fueled fight. But I have unfortunately been forced to set boundaries with her and ban her from spending too much time at my apartment in case it turns into a booze mess. Well, Laura has been quite inconsolable after her recent divorce from Scoop. Not that I excuse laughing at the pain of others, but I must admit the situation is a bit funny to me. She cheated on Scoop, ruined her marriage completely on her own, and now she has spent the last couple of months moping to anyone and everyone about how Scoop broke her heart. Ha! It's the most ludicrous pile of poop I've ever heard. Well, as most of Laura's problems tend to involve, I somehow was sucked into the whirlpool of the storm. Mom recently called me on the phone. I braced myself for an unpleasant phone call, as I always did when I received a call from Mom, but even I was not prepared for the insane statement she was about to put forth. "OP, your sister Laura is feeling depressed over her divorce," said Mom. This was not news to me. Of course, it was not news to anybody. So why did she feel the need to remind me? Yet, I pressed on with the phone call and asked Mom what her point was about all this. That's when Mom dropped a bombshell on me. "OP, Would you mind paying for Laura's luxury vacation? Laura and I feel it would be in her best interest to send her to Hawaii so she can relax and start feeling better," said Mom. I did not quite know how to react to such a ridiculous assertion. My first instinct was to burst out laughing at such a ridiculous request. But then I quickly realized Mom was dead serious. She asked me what was so funny. I had to stand up to Mom and tell her the truth. She is not someone who responds well to friendliness. I often must be quite blunt and rude with her to get my point across because she is so thick and stubborn. I told Mom point blank I didn't want to spend the money I'd earned with my blood, sweat, and tears on a free vacation for Laura. I reminded her that Billy and I would not even be able to afford our own vacation to Hawaii, let alone a trip for Laura that we would not even be attending ourselves. I'm a server at Outback Steakhouse, for crying out loud. I can barely afford a vacation to Dayton, Georgia. Mom started blabbering her usual crap. She called me selfish and accused me of not having any empathy for my sister. My heart was pounding and my blood was starting to boil. So I snapped at Mom and told her Laura's divorce was her own fault. Mom got so upset she hung up the phone. I did not call her back. I did not want to hear from this clown. The phone call with Mom was quite unpleasant, but most phone calls with Mom are unpleasant. So this particular call did not seem so out of the ordinary. A couple of days went by and I nearly forgot about the absurd favor Mom had requested of me. That is until I got home from an exhausting shift at Outback and Billy propositioned me with the same request. Billy had mostly been a good husband and loving partner toward me, but we had our share of bumps in the road just like any couple that's been around the block a while. One disrespectful trait of Billy that had always annoyed me was the comments he would make about Laura. Look, Laura and I are sisters, so we definitely share some similarities in the looks department. Billy has often jokingly mentioned how attractive he finds Laura and has made other suggestive jokes. I shall refrain from repeating in this post. I told Billy several times these comments were inappropriate and made me uncomfortable, but time would pass and he would make another joke again. I put the word joke in quotes because I knew deep down he was not truly making a joke. In reflection, I should have kicked Billy to the curb before he had a chance to betray me. I asked Billy who or what had put this idea in his head. Why on earth would Billy want us to fund Laura's luxurious vacation to Hawaii? I explained to him that Laura was the one who had sabotaged her own marriage with her foul and rotten behavior. Why should we carry the financial bill for her mistakes? I reminded Billy that I worked at Outback Steakhouse and he worked at GameStop. I felt like I was living in some sort of Twilight Zone. Billy dropped the issue after I gave him enough pushback. Although I knew my partner well enough to know he was for some reason disappointed and unsatisfied by my response. Oh well, I thought to myself, Billy would just have to suck it up and get over it. Well, that was what I thought until the next huge bombshell hit me. This is the true reason I'm writing this post for you all today. I am still having trouble processing what exactly has happened these past few days, but I will do my best to explain it. You see, Billy and I have shared a savings account for the duration of our entire marriage. I have always taken the savings account quite seriously, only touching the funds within the account in the event of a serious emergency. Billy, on the other hand, was always annoying me to dip into the savings fund and blow the money on playful expenses. He wanted to go to a Pokemon convention and then he wanted to go to a Limp Bizkit concert. I essentially had to act like Billy's mother and put my foot down and tell him no as if he were merely a toddler. Well, imagine the betrayal I felt when I woke up yesterday and discovered the vast majority of funds in Billy and I's savings account had been depleted. At first, I was worried that we had been the victim of a cyber attack or some sort of identity theft. But then I saw the funds had been charged to a resort in Hawaii. My heart started pounding, and I could feel my face turning red. I immediately ran downstairs to confront Billy. When I asked Billy to explain why our savings account had been depleted, he did not lie to me. He did not even seem to feel shame for what he did. He seemed almost proud. He told me point blank he had been convinced by my mom to give the money so Laura could enjoy her dream vacation in Hawaii. I was so angry, I felt like I was going to pass out. I had to step away and regain composure. All I wanted to do was scream. This was too much of a betrayal for me to handle. I realized I had to put my foot down or these people were going to ruin my life. For years, I counted on Billy to be my rock and anchor during my times of need and despair. Yet here he was going behind my back to give my hard-earned cash over to Laura so she could go mess around in Hawaii. Not on my watch. I was a doormat my entire life. I've been abused by my family, but I was fine putting up with it so long as Billy was in my corner. Now it was apparent I had nobody I could truly count on. Once I decided that a divorce was the only sensible option left at my disposal, I decided to call someone I'd hoped I'd never have to call. Walter Beaker, 50M, is one of the most vicious and feared lawyers in my area. It was he who helped Billy and I arrange a prenuptial agreement years ago when we first got married. I knew that if there was anyone out there who could help me get out of this difficulty, it was him. I explained the situation to Walter, and he reassured me that this divorce would be an easy one since Billy had done something so terribly out of order. I immediately felt more relaxed about the situation. Walter suggested the best course of action would be to discuss the violation of the prenup agreement in person between all of us, so we could trick Billy before he had a chance to lawyer up and get a plan of action strategized. Since Laura was already sipping piña coladas in Hawaii and having the time of her life, I at least wanted Mom to be present so she could witness the destruction and heartache her interfering ways had wreaked upon my life. I called Mom and invited her over to dinner, and I then informed Billy that we would be having dinner at the house with Mom. They both thanked me for being a good sport about Laura's vacation. I just played dumb and acted like I agreed with them. I wanted it to be a surprise when the absolute freight train attack of Walter Beaker hit them at dinner tomorrow. I was so nervous. I had difficulty sleeping. The next day, I purposely made up an excuse for Mom and Billy to leave the house. I secretly asked them both to run to the store to pick up some cooking ingredients for the big meal I was preparing. Since Mom and Billy were both in a good mood because I had paid for Laura's vacation, they happily agreed. That's when I informed Walter Beaker to come over to the house. Oh boy, you all should have seen the looks on Mom and Billy's foul faces when they entered the kitchen and saw Walter Beaker sitting at the kitchen table. Walter was calmly going over the prenuptial agreement. I could tell Billy immediately recognized the document as he began to shake and squirm. He started tearing up and began crying like a little baby. Walter Beaker was wearing his trademark reading glasses, and we all knew he meant business. I'll spare you the legal details of the discussion that took place, but the conversation ended with Billy sobbing like a child. Mom was already drunk when she arrived at my apartment, and she tried to interject her thoughts and shift the blame like the foul and immature piece of poop she is. I told them both to get the heck out of my apartment. Although I put on a brave face during the meeting with Walter, I must admit I'm quite depressed over everything that's happened. I could use any advice and support you people are willing to give me. Update 1. Hello? OP here with an update for everyone. First, I'd like to thank everyone for the kind and supportive comments. I received some of you were sympathetic, some of you criticized my behavior and said I allowed this to happen to myself. In some ways, you might be right, but I am learning how to stand up for myself now. Unfortunately, things just keep getting crazier for me. All day, I've been getting calls from family members and friends in the community asking me how I could be so cruel to break Billy's heart like that. I set the record straight with every single one of these people and told them the truth, but it was like they didn't want to listen to me. Clearly, Mom, Billy, and most likely Laura as well, have been spreading rumors about me. I live in a small town and rumors spread like wildfire here. What's truly making my blood boil about all this is everyone in my family seems to have gotten the idea that Billy and I are divorcing because I'm having an affair with Walter Beaker. This is ludicrous. I can't believe these people would all sink so low just to badmouth me and stain my reputation. I have nothing against Walter, but it would be quite unprofessional for a lawyer and client to have a relationship. I just hope this storm passes for me soon. Update 2. Hello, people. OP here with yet another update for you all. Thanks again for the support I've received so far. Allow me to cut right to the chase. So, some of you suggested I should make a Facebook post about all this crap I've been dealing with so I could clear the air with my family and the local community. First, let me explain that I'm quite a private person, despite the impression I might be giving in this post. I've always had difficulty discussing my problems with others unless I was totally anonymous, and I've always been the type to just quietly deal with my problems on my own, and I have always been quite protective of my privacy in life. I had not even posted on Facebook in months before this event, but I deemed it necessary to explain my side of the story before my reputation was tarnished even more. There was nothing particularly outrageous about my post. I simply explained that Billy had betrayed the financial trust in our relationship by stealing from me, and I made sure everybody knew it was to fund Laura's trip to Hawaii. I admit I threw Mom under the bus as well in this post. The post got a lot of support from my Facebook friends. However, I received a message from a local law firm telling me I was being sued for defamation of character by Billy and Mom. I could not believe this. I guess Billy knows he does not have a leg to stand on in this upcoming divorce hearing. So he and his crew of clowns are grasping at any straw they possibly can. I informed Walter Beaker about this nonsense and he told me to relax. But right now I'm having a lot of trouble doing it. Wish me luck, people. Update 3. Hi everyone. OP here. I received some more surprising and worrying news today. I don't know what to think about anything anymore. I don't know if I ever truly knew the real Billy. The Billy I thought I knew and thought I loved was perhaps a mere disguise all along. Today I had a long and revelatory discussion with Laura's ex-husband, Scoop. I was shocked to receive a message from Scoop since I had not heard much of his comings or goings since his divorce from Laura. Scoop said we should meet in person to discuss some important things. I was quite interested by this. I invited Scoop over to my apartment. He looked dashing and handsome. I had forgotten just how good he looked. He immediately put me at ease and offered his sincere condolences regarding what was going on with my family and Billy. He told me he was willing to testify as a witness against Billy at my divorce hearing. I was initially confused and asked him why he felt like he should to do this. As far as I was aware, Scoop hardly knew Billy well at all. Scoop told me that I needed to prepare myself because I was not going to like what I was about to hear. I nearly passed out when he dropped this bombshell on me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. He told me in no uncertain terms that the reason he was qualified to testify against Billy was because he knew Billy had been having an affair with my mom. He showed me screenshots he had stolen from Billy and Mom's phones months ago, as well as proof in writing from communication with Laura. I could not believe it. Billy was having an affair with Mom, and my sister knew and never even told me. Scoop apologized for not telling me sooner, but he told me he just wanted to get away from Laura as fast as he could and thought he would face consequences if he tried to expose the affair. But I think with Scoop and Walter Beaker on my side, I might have a chance at getting revenge on the foul clowns who have tried to ruin my life. I have a lot of details to share with you all. Wish me luck. Update 4. This is another update for you fine people. I am going to try to keep things brief because there is so much to go over. I had my divorce hearing today. This was the big day, the day I was finally going to get away from Billy forever. Here's how messed up my family is. When I showed up to court, Billy, Mom, and Laura were all on the same team. Meanwhile, I had my lawyer and Laura's ex-husband as my only support in the courtroom. I felt uneasy, but I pressed on. I knew we had the facts on our side that would rock the world of those foul pieces of crap on the other side of the courtroom. Billy's lawyer immediately began spewing a bunch of lies and nonsense, trying to paint me out to be some sort of evil monster. It was a bunch of nonsense. Billy sat there with a smug look on his face like he knew he was getting away with something, and Mom and Laura sat in the stands behind him, gloating and grinning inappropriately. I wanted to punch Billy's lawyer in the face, but I kept my cool. I knew Walter Beaker and Scoop would help me. Once Walter Beaker started his opening statement, I could see the judge's face begin to change already. When Scoop was called to the stand as a witness, a slideshow and projector was brought out for all in the courtroom to see. The proof of Billy's affair with Mom was broadcast for all to see. An eruption of chaos took place in the courtroom at that moment. Billy broke down and flew into a rage, foolishly admitting in the heat of the moment that he had, in fact, had an affair with Mom because I was not satisfying his needs. The best part? He also admitted that he had messed around with Laura, my own sister. This hurt me as well, but suddenly the three of them began fighting in the courtroom. It was a glorious thing to behold. Update 5. Hello, everyone. This is going to be my final update. I know it's been a while and I left you guys hanging, but I've been busy finalizing everything with the divorce and finally living the life I always wanted to live. You see, Billy, Laura, and Mom were all arrested and found in contempt of court after their outbursts during the divorce hearing. My divorce was granted without a single issue from the judge, as he could see Billy was clearly a serial cheater. As for that frivolous defamation suit Billy and Mom tried to send my way, it was dismissed without a second thought during a later court date. Walter accompanied me. Billy and Mom did not even bother to show up for court. As for what I'm doing nowadays, since a lot of you happen to ask, I moved to another town and got a nice apartment with the true love of my life. That's right, Scoop and I got engaged. He's all the things for me Billy could never be. Now that I've learned to stand up for myself, I have a partner who truly respects and appreciates me. Thank you all for reading. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Dad replaced my mom by getting married to his girlfriend and kicked me out after I told her to get out of our lives. My mother was my world. I remember reading books, watching documentaries, and going on road trips with her. She baked my sister and I cookies whenever we were sick. Her and Dad would take us hiking every other week. I still miss her even now. When I was 11 years old, she passed away from a driving accident. It was the hardest year in my life, and it hasn't gotten easier. 2 years after she passed, my father started dating a woman named Nicole, and 4 years later, they're getting married. Nicole is younger than my father. After dating Nicole, I saw my father come back into a shell, but it turned into something else. Nicole brought adventure back into his life. They often went on elaborate trips and frequent night outs. During all of this, I felt neglected. My father slowly stopped taking my sister and I on our weekly hikes. He started speaking less and less with us overall, and he even once forgot my mother's birthday. After she came into our lives, I started losing my father. He just wasn't there anymore. One time when my sister and I were home alone, she fell down the stairs and got a huge cut on her forehead. It was clear she needed stitches, so I called my father immediately. Nicole answered the phone, and I told her to give the phone to my father. She refused, saying he was busy, and before I could get another word in, she disconnected the call. I embarrassingly had to ask the neighbor to bring us to urgent care, where my dad later met us. This woman at one point removed my mother's picture from the fire mantle to put up a picture of her and my dad from their trip to Washington. The thing that tipped me over was when she made my father forget about my mother's birthday. Every year, my sister and I go with our father to visit my mother on her birthday. It was an annual tradition even before Nicole entered our lives. Nicole and my father went on a trip to Florida and were supposed to be back 3 days before my mother's birthday. But because this woman is motion sick, my father decided to break the drive back into small intervals to make it easier on her. Because of this, he ended up missing our annual trip. He didn't even call us. Not even a week later, my father has the nerve to tell us about an exciting surprise. Nicole is pregnant. I get angry and tell my father, "You need to knock her ass up when you can't even be here for us?" I then look at Nicole and tell her she is a disgusting piece of trash and to get out of our lives. My father gets angry and yells at me to go up to my room. Later, my grandpa unexpectedly came over to pick me up. My father didn't text me even as I left. He wouldn't even look at me. It's been 2 days, and I'm still at my grandparents' home. I feel ashamed for saying what I said, yet I don't feel overwhelming regret. Edit. When I saw how deep the cut was, I immediately called my dad. He was staying over at Nicole's place at the time. When I called, Nicole picked up. She said, "Hello." I said, "Sister's name is bleeding. Can you pass the phone to Dad?" She said, "Dad's name is busy. I can't." And immediately afterward, she disconnected the phone. I then left to go get my neighbor. I've decided to contact my maternal grandpa tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes. Comments where OP has replied, "You didn't say your age, but I hope you can move out soon. I appreciate it. I've spoken to school counselors, too. No one is willing to help me. I've tried talking with my dad about how I feel way before my outburst, but it always ends with, 'It happened years ago. It's time to move on.' I don't even know what that means. My sister can't get help either, so I'm trying to peacefully exist for her. I am 17, my sister is 13, my dad is 44, and Nicole is 34. Has Nicole ever tried to connect? I ran out of characters in the original post, but that's the thing. Nicole never made any effort to talk to us apart from when we go out for family dinners or when we are at parties. Even then, the conversations are always about her. My dad invited her on our hikes early in their relationship, but she didn't like being outside, and over time, my dad stopped taking us hiking even when we asked him. Nicole does pottery from time to time, and I've invited her to my Art Honor Society events, but she always declined. We've made every effort to get to know her, but she only seems interested in talking with my dad. She doesn't understand we are a part of his life. 2. Grandparents and their role in this? I didn't touch on this before, but I am currently living with my paternal grandparents. They live closer to us than my maternal side grandpa. I've tried talking to my paternal grandparents, too, but it was also a very wishy-washy conversation. Not to say it didn't help at times, but it's clear that they were justifying my dad's actions at every chance rather than hearing me out. I don't want to live like this. I hate holding resentment, but I can't help it. I've asked my dad about therapy, but he doesn't believe in that type of support. This morning, I asked my paternal grandparents if I could spend Thanksgiving at my maternal grandpa's place, but they refused. And that's another thing. I can't escape the situation or the bad feelings if I wanted to. I know Dad and Nicole will come over for Thanksgiving, and I'll have to sit there. Counseling? I want grief counseling mainly, but even just help working through my resentment toward my dad and Nicole is enough. I don't want to go to bed crying every other night. I don't want to feel hate. I just want to be mentally at peace. My dad doesn't believe in therapy or counseling. I don't know what made him hold those views, but it's made it harder for my sister and I to get help. I've secretly talked to school counselors, my paternal grandparents, my dad, my aunt, Dad's sister, but it's never a productive conversation. The only person who has helped me the most was my maternal grandpa, but we are barely allowed to see him. I've calmly expressed how I felt to my dad on multiple occasions. You said you talked to your school counselor. What do they say? They can't point me toward a resource without my dad's consent. The conversations usually end with, "Continue to speak with my dad." I don't expect them to have a solution to every situation, but it would be nice to just be heard fully. I also have to censor a few details when I speak with them because they have sent a police officer to my house in the past. My dad was angry about that situation, and I don't want him to feel angry with me. As for therapy, my dad doesn't believe in therapy or counseling, so I'm limited with options. More on the police visit. When I spoke to the school counselor, I mentioned that when my dad and Nicole were traveling abroad, he left me and my sister home alone for 3 days and forgot to leave us some money to get food. Because of this, a police officer was sent to our home to check on us, and my dad got angry about me sharing family information with strangers. Another time, he forgot to pick up my sister from swim practice for an hour or so. My dad got a call from the swim place and he told me to walk 30 minutes and get my sister. As for feelings, I feel like my mind is a bit lighter and my heart doesn't feel as heavy as before. It helped me process my emotions somewhat. Maybe you need to tell the school counselor what is going on. Regardless, I've debated about it, but at the end of the day, my sister and I still need our dad. He financially supports us, and we still live in his home. He has control over our college funds, so the last thing I want is to jeopardize that. Also, my sister is still young, and I know she still needs him even if he is emotionally unavailable. I don't want that to potentially be taken away from her. Update 1. I've called my maternal grandpa when everyone was still sleeping. It ended up being a 2-hour call. I basically mentioned to him everything I've said here and how I want to live with him if possible. He said that as much as he wants me to get out from there, he can't do much without my father's approval. I hinted at a legal approach, but he said he wouldn't be able to see us if it got that far. My grandpa also shared some new info regarding my dad. According to him, when I was 14 and my sister was 10, my dad dropped us over at my grandpa's farm since he and Nicole were flying out. A day after they returned, my grandpa dropped us back home. We were still sleeping in Grandpa's car when this ordeal happened, but when my grandpa knocked on the door, my dad answered the door drunk out of his mind. From what little he could see, my grandpa saw that the house was a mess. He told my dad that he would bring us back the following day once my dad was in his right mind. We left back to Grandpa's place. Then, my grandpa got a call from my dad the next morning, threatening him with the police if he didn't bring us back immediately. My grandpa mentioned that he would speak with my paternal grandparents to see if something can be done about our situation. Update 2. Hi everyone. It's been a while. I really want to thank all of you for your perspectives and advice. Just wanted to give an update regarding Thanksgiving dinner. When my dad and Nicole arrived, I asked if I could speak with them both. My dad said he didn't want to talk and went into the living room. Nicole still remained by the front door, so I apologized for insulting her. She replied that she needed to leave and went to the living room. Overall, she still seemed rightfully angry with me. Dinner was awkward because my grandma would try to get my dad and I to talk, but he wouldn't really bother. After dinner, I pulled him aside and apologized again. He ignored me and went straight to Nicole. I still wasn't sure if I was heading back with him or not, so I packed everything just in case. When he was getting ready to leave, I asked him if I could come back home. He said Nicole wasn't comfortable having me home even though it had been a few days since the incident. I spent the entire night crying on the phone with my sister. Therapy and living situation. After having my call with my maternal grandpa, he called my paternal grandparents a couple of days later to discuss my situation. I overheard the call between them. My maternal grandpa expressed he was concerned about me, especially my mental state, and asked my paternal grandparents if they were willing to talk to my dad about putting me in therapy. My grandparents said they'd be willing to take me to their church's mental support group or talk with their faith leader who specialized in grief counseling. My grandpa pushed back on the idea and mentioned a need for more professional help, but they were not receptive to the idea. All three of them also had a heated conversation about my living arrangement. My grandpa said it was ridiculous for a grown man to throw out their daughter, and it was shameful that my paternal grandparents are not hard-pressed in helping me get back home. That's all I heard regarding the conversation. Now, my grandma started taking me to weekly private sessions with the faith leader. I'm not entirely happy with the arrangement, but it has helped me start to process my grief in a healthier way. Also, I am still living with my grandparents. I apologized over and over through text to my dad and through my grandparents, but he has not responded. My maternal grandpa has called my dad many times, but my dad blocked him. I am contemplating telling my school counselor next semester all the details regarding my dad and not omitting anything to protect him. I also wasn't invited to my dad and Nicole's Christmas dinner, which hurt, but I'm starting to not care to have a relationship with my dad. I don't know if my feelings will change. In a twisted way, it was good he didn't let me go back home with him. The space has helped me focus on myself. Comments where OP has replied, "Is your sister still in the house?" I ran out of characters in the update, but my sister is still living with my dad. She visits me over weekends, and I've walked home with her from school, so I still have some contact. Text him once more and say you're not sorry, have him sign away his parental rights, and then go scorched earth. I've thought about this long and hard, to the point it had mentally consumed me. I've imagined every revenge and final say moment, but one thing I've recognized in therapy is how much my resentment and anger have been holding me back from moving on. I am now just trying to emotionally detach from them. I have every intention to involve the school counselor for my sister. You've done the right thing. Thank you. I'm looking forward to college and putting this behind me in time. I'm trying to convince my grandparents to allow my sister to live with them full-time, so she has some semblance of peace. Has your father stopped leaving your sister alone for days at a time? He hasn't gone on any major trips since the end of November, but he definitely will for his California trip in January. I've asked my grandparents if they could let her stay over during that and, honestly, for the foreseeable future. OP responds to a comment with advice and questions here. I can't live with my maternal grandpa because I'm sure my dad wouldn't allow it. He has threatened to call the cops in the past when my sister and I stayed at my grandpa's place. Given how my grandpa and dad are not on speaking terms, I believe trying to live with him will only further prevent us from seeing him. Believe me, I never wanted to go to a faith leader for mental help. My paternal grandparents are hell-bent on not taking me to a valid professional. They don't believe in it and are worried what others might think of me if I do. I can drive myself, but I don't have my own car. I also don't want to lie to my grandparents about my whereabouts if I do take their truck. It's too big of a risk for me. I've lost a lot of love and respect I have for my father. I've stopped trying to communicate. I still end up crying some days, but it's becoming less frequent. The only reason I'll ever talk to him is if it's anything regarding my sister. Nicole is 34 years old, and my dad is 44 years old. I hope he is present for the baby. I have no expectations for him having regret or expressing remorse. My image of him pretty much died the moment he kicked me out. I already work at a local diner, so I'm hoping to save enough before summer, at least. Also, I've gotten into 2 or 3 colleges as of now. I'm excited for that chapter. Another comment. Thank you for your advice. I ended up spending New Year's Eve with a couple of my friends and sister. A little silver lining in all of this. Also, Nicole's cooking kind of sucks, so missing Christmas wasn't that bad. I'm not religious, so I was skeptical of the faith-based approach in therapy. It's better than nothing, and the faith leader actually strays from religious-rooted reasons during sessions. More info? Hi everyone. I'm feeling overwhelmed with the amount of messages, but I want to say that I am not literate regarding the laws around my situation. Regarding my sister and I's college fund, my mom worked in a small boutique, and some money earned through that was set aside, while my dad worked as a consultant, and I do know he did put some money into the funds, too. I don't know if my sister and I received any money regarding benefits or any monetary inheritance from my mom after she passed. I'm still understanding a great deal of information and writing everything out first. I even recently opened up a bank account with my grandparents' help, so now I will not be dependent on him for simple monetary needs. I have thought about emancipation, but in less than a year I'll be 18. So I am not sure if that avenue is worth my energy given everything else. Also, thank you for leaving info in the comments. I'll certainly be looking into all of that. Also, I know it is a small percentage of people, but please don't send me messages telling me to do violent things to my dad or Nicole or wishing harm on their baby. I don't need that, nor would I wish it upon anybody. More new comments. I believe my mom and dad contributed to a 529 plan for both my sister and I. I don't know how much is in it or if he'll try to change the beneficiary to possibly the baby. I am trying to figure that out since my mom contributed to it as well. If I can still be entitled to that money or if I could get the money back if he tries to change the beneficiary. I'd give this part as possible, but a possibility that I thought of. Another comment. Faith leader says his behavior is a result of denial of the mourning process and that his unhealthy coping mechanisms, e.g., constantly going out with Nicole, have manifested into his current actions. Also, he may be ignoring us because we remind him of mom, or some BS like that. The leader puts heavy emphasis on family, so it's clear he's just finding roundabout ways to explain my dad's actions but doesn't acknowledge his wrongdoings. He at least acknowledges my feelings and discusses healthy coping mechanisms and how to manage grief. The faith leader never agreed or disagreed with any of my sentiments. Update 3. Hi. I wasn't sure if I was still allowed to add long updates to my old post, but I wanted to give one right now. Everything is a mess, so I'll try my best to be coherent. This, in hindsight, was an idiotic mistake on my end, but after I scheduled a meeting with my counselor, I mentioned it while calling my sister. On the call, I never explicitly mentioned my intention to report him, but she started freaking out and telling me it was not a good idea. She ended up crying on the call, saying that I would be hurting our father if I reported him. I told her that I wouldn't go to the meeting to help her calm down. Regardless, I still planned on going to the counselor meeting. I scheduled the meeting during the second week of January while my father was out in California. The night before the meeting, I got a call from my father. He said that if I ever wanted a place to live again to not spread lies about him to the counselor. I said that I would never do that, and that was the end of the call. This was the first time I've spoken to him in days, and I never gave any indication of me reporting him. I realized my sister must have said something, so I called her to talk. I asked her why she would tell him something like this, and she said that he called her to ask what I was doing. She slipped up and told him that I was planning to meet with the counselor. I still ended up going to the counselor meeting, and I told him everything that was going on. I told the counselor to please not notify my father about the meeting, and he agreed. At the very end, The counselor gave me 2 to 3 pamphlets for mental health support and said he'll follow up with me. He also dodged my questions regarding what will happen now. A day later, right after I got home from school, my paternal grandpa called me over and said he wanted to talk. He told me that the school called my father to set up a meeting with the counselor. He started to yell and get angry with me, saying that if I pull this, they'll take my sister and the baby away. He also said that I wasn't raised to lie and continued to reprimand me. I never thought my grandpa was capable of being this way, but it scared me how angry he got. I also got grounded, so I'm not allowed to drive or visit friends for a couple of weeks. I don't know what exactly went down in the meeting between the counselor and my father. From the call between my grandpa and father, I learned there was a police officer present in the meeting and that they will be doing a wellness check. Also, my father denied everything that I told the counselor and chalked it up to me being spiteful because I lost my mom. I wasn't in a good mental state afterward, and I am still not. I call my friend and ask her to stay on the phone with me most times, or I just rot in my room. Also, as punishment, my grandma stopped taking me to the faith leader, so that's my current situation. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My wife left me for another man after I let her sleep with other men to save our marriage. I have been struggling with my existence for over a few years now. I fail to recognize the difference between right and wrong. I don't blame anyone but me for this. I let my wife do everything she wanted just to have a happy married life. I followed her in that route knowing that I didn't like it but did it anyways to keep her happy. I needed a place to pour out my heart without any hesitation. Who else then to a stranger? I can say that I let my wife sleep with other men to keep her happy. I, 36, have been married to my wife, Bonnie, 32F, for 7 years. We had known each other for a long time. Bonnie is my best friend's sister, and we were a part of the social group from our early 20s. We were seeing different people initially, but in our late 20s, we fell for each other and got married. We had a beautiful marriage. Our social circle was common, and we had known each other for a long time. For the first 3 to 4 years, we never faced any serious challenges in our relationship. Minor disagreements were there, which was normal, but after that, she started nagging about our dull life. She always had complaints about how our relationship was losing the spark. It took me some time to figure out what she wanted. I'll come to that eventually. We were doing everything to keep our marriage refreshing. We went on dates, hiking, vacations, parties, games, everything. We did everything we used to do during our courtship days. Strangely, she wasn't spelling out what she actually wanted from me. She would just rant and crib about getting bored. When I asked her what she wanted me to do, she would say, "Look it up. There are so many new things going on. People are experimenting with new stuff to keep their bedroom life thrilling." So, I looked it up. I came up with various ways to spice up things. We started with role plays, sex toys, and then slowly we moved to BDSM. We even took a crash course for that. Yes, it was shocking for me, too. I had no clue of its existence. There are professional trainers who train you for that shit. It was fun. I had no complaints. Everything we did was within the realms of marriage, and no third human being was present in between us. Our relationship got better, but my problem was not over. Bonnie was enjoying every new thing we tried, but her happiness didn't last long. She used to get over it very soon and wanted something new always. It was like drugs to her. The initial dose that makes you happy doesn't keep you satisfied when you do it over and over again. You always want more. After a year of this, I ran out of ideas and almost gave up, but we still continued with the stuff I mentioned above. Things got wild after our South Asia trip. We were put up on this public island in South Asia, and we found several massage parlors there. There was something off about those massage centers. Firstly, it said, "Erotic massage in your private M/M." Secondly, one of the highlights in the advertising board said, "Your identity is confidential." Like, what the hell? Bonnie was curious about the whole thing. She went and inquired more about it. It was about getting a massage from the opposite gender with more focus on the private parts. I rolled my eyes and got over it, but Bonnie didn't. She pestered me to try it at least once. She portrayed it as some kind of Asian cultural stuff, but trust me, It wasn't. On the day of our return, we finally tried it. So I enter the private cabin. There is a woman in a bikini waiting for me. I lie down. She starts with a back rub. She literally throws herself on me. I can feel her front, you know what I mean, on my back. And then she asks me if I want her to get rid of her clothes. I panicked and said, no, and asked her to stop. I honestly thought that to be some of a scam or a honey trap. Something. I got dressed and rushed outside the cabin. I called Bonnie, but she didn't answer. I asked for her in the reception and got to know she was inside, enjoying the session. I was anxious, not knowing what to do. I spot a man who looked like someone from the States. Very hesitantly, I approached him and asked him if this is what they do inside. And he said, yes, they provide all kinds of service, not only the massage. All means literally all. He assured me it wasn't scammy, but they charge you for all extra services. I was partially relieved that Bonnie was not caught in any scam but dreaded what was going on inside. After a couple of hours, she came outside with a wide grin on her face. Her young masseur followed her to the front gate, smiling and talking to her flirtatiously, and she reciprocated. We went outside, and she asked me how it was. I was like, you knew what happens inside? She rolled her eyes and said, yes. I asked her, and you liked it? She grinned and said, yeah, it was so much fun. The guy was so good at his work that I just wanted more and more of him. I asked her, what did she do? She was like, normal stuff. Erotic massage and some tongue action down there. She nodded and made me feel all was normal. That's how we got into the game of actual exploration. We came back home, and she couldn't stop talking about the benefits of massage. I told her I had no problem with a normal spa and massage, which we get often, but not that erotic BS. But she convinced me to try a couple's massage once. After some pushback, I agreed to try this together. We called a professional masseur home, and he did what he had to. Bonnie used to be very happy and excited during this entire phase. Our relationship indeed sparkled, and I felt we were again a newlywed couple who just couldn't get enough of each other. This went on for a few months. Then, as usual, Bonnie's excitement faded away sooner than I anticipated. Then one day she comes and says, you know, couples who open their marriage are the ones who live happy forever because they are bonded by love and not any other boundaries. She eventually arrived at the point that we should also open our marriage. Obviously, I flipped out. She showed me several research articles that supported her claim. I said, we already have professionals coordinating this stuff. Threesomes, BDSM, etc. She said she no longer enjoyed it with professionals and now wanted to try it out with normal individuals. She showed me many married couples who were into this, couple swapping and stuff, and they had happy, long marriages. I was still not convinced when she suggested that we try it out with one such married couple and see how it goes. She promised that we would stop it if I didn't feel comfortable. I agreed to give it a shot. I won't say it wasn't fun or I didn't enjoy it. I did, but it felt like taking an illegal substance. You know how it feels? It gives you pleasure and you enjoy the highs. But when you wake up the next morning, you feel bitter about your choice. You feel hollow. Eventually, we got into all kinds of stuff. Swapping, hookups, and whatnot. Every time it was about, let's do this once. And then it was like, okay, this would be the last time. All this continued for over 2 to 3 years. Initially, I used to go silent after every session, but then I stopped thinking about it. Maybe everything happened so fast that I wasn't able to process it and just went with the flow. On a side note, yes, our relationship strengthened. We didn't fight, and Bonnie used to be happy. We had set up some ground rules, like no emotional cheating, never fucking anyone in our bedroom, not hiding anything from each other. And if we ever get feelings for anyone, we'll stop seeing them and confront each other. A year ago, I met this woman, Ella, and felt that she had the vibe I've been looking for. Yeah. Before that, let me tell you that my count in hookups was way less than Bonnie's. Women generally have an easier way out finding men. Bonnie did set up a dating profile for me, but my problem was I was looking for people with similar mindsets. But people there on that platform wanted actions and not vibes. So, after a while, I stopped trying aggressively. Coming back to Ella, I met her at work. She had a breakup recently and was single at that time. She was a contractual employee hired to assist me on a short-term project for a year. We bonded over work and eventually, I told her about my marital status. She was amazed that Bonnie and I were so open-minded. Ella and I started meeting outside work hours, and yes, we got into a physical relationship. But the thing was, I was getting emotionally attached to her. Not only in bed, I wanted to meet her outside. I stopped chatting with other women, and even when anyone hit on me, I avoided them. My equation with Bonnie was not going great. Though we lived in the same house, we had our own worlds. Yes, we were there for each other whenever we needed our better half. But the love was slowly sneaking out. Before I met Ella, there were times when I wanted to come out of this. I even discussed with Bonnie that we have had enough of all this and now we should switch back to a monogamous relationship. But she was not done yet. She said, "Okay, but not now. We are still young and unexplored." Then I met Ella, and I stopped whining about this to Bonnie. After a few months, I realized I was getting serious about Ella, which meant I was emotionally cheating on Bonnie. So I confronted Bonnie and told her everything. She freaked out. She said it was indeed cheating and I should immediately stop seeing her. I tried to push back, but she laid a choice. Either Ella or her. I chose my marriage and gradually got distant from Ella. She understood my coldness, and by then, her contract was about to be over and she left the office. I felt lonely again. More than lonely, I had anger and frustration for Bonnie. This was not the life I wanted. A week ago, I was sitting idle and Bonnie was in the shower. Her phone was vibrating. Out of curiosity, I sneaked in. We never checked each other's phones. I mean, we knew what we both were doing. So what's the point? There were incoming messages from someone saved as future. I opened the chat and found she was in a relationship with this man. In the most shocking revelation, she was planning on divorcing me, and he was doing the same with his wife. It gave chills to my bones. I looked for other chats but found none. She was not chatting or seeing anyone else but this man. I looked up the timeline and found they had been in a relationship for more than a year now. Even when I confessed to her about Ella, she was swearing her love to this man. Yet she didn't tell me and instead asked me to break up things with Ella. I wanted to confront her right there, but by now I have become numb. I don't actually feel anything, so I just kept the phone back and pretended nothing happened. Bonnie and I are almost strangers living in the same house. After a week of knowing this, I don't feel anger anymore. It's more of a betrayal. I have an existential crisis. What have I done with my life? I don't want to confront her. I just want to vanish from here. I have a therapist appointment, but that's after 4 days. I have to sort out other stuff, too, but not before letting out my emotions, so I'm here. I know I called for my misery, and now I have to deal with it. Update 1. Thanks for the incredible support. It really means a lot. I knew I would be called weak, a simp, and all sorts of names. Maybe I'm all of it. A stranger's comment cannot hurt you more than a betrayal from your loved ones. I have attended 2 sessions with the therapist, and it helped me clear my head. I basically had 2 choices: confront her and burst their racket, or silently sort out my shit before they attack. I followed the second one. I pulled out my contribution from the joint account. I wanted to change my workplace because this one was close to Bonnie's, and under no circumstances did I want to cross paths with her. I discussed that with my manager, and he said there might be an opening in another location, but that's in the next town. I said I don't mind. He's yet to confirm that to me. I'm also seeking other job opportunities far from this place, maybe a neighboring town or outside the country. I'll look for the place once the job thing is sorted. I also reached out to Ella. Call it my guilt or desperation, but I wanted to tell her the truth. I asked her for a meeting, but she refused. I insisted that I needed to confess the reason for my separation, and she agreed. I told her the entire story, also about Bonnie's plan of divorcing me and my counterplan of ghosting her. She said she was sorry for me but wanted to stay out of this mess. I respect her decision and didn't contact her again. I hired a divorce lawyer to sort out the matter. Our marriage was complicated. It wasn't a case of infidelity. Emotional cheating is not a thing in the law. Not that infidelity is criminalized in the States, but it plays a part in alimony. A gentleman from this community cautioned me that a good lawyer can make a lot of difference in alimony and settlement. I hired one of the best lawyers in town. A little expensive, but I hope it's worth it. He assured me he would save me the alimony because Bonnie earned a substantially good salary, if not more. He asked me to remove Bonnie as my nominee from all kinds of legal documents and insurance. That is still in process. So yeah, that's all the update I have for now. Thanks again for all the support. I look forward to the comments, both good and bad. Update 2. I have quite an update this time. As I mentioned in my last post, I had almost sorted out all the stuff before serving her the divorce papers. The divorce papers were in. Before that, I had thought of various ways of bursting her bubble, but when the time actually came, all I wanted was peace. I wanted to silently move out. I did the same. When she was at work, I packed all my stuff, loaded it on my truck, and moved out. I kept the sign, divorce papers, on the dinner table with my lawyer's contact and a note saying, "Saved your time and energy of preparing divorce papers for me. Here you go." By the time she returned home and found the note, I was already in my new apartment in the next town. My manager helped me get a transfer to a different office location and found a place nearby. I haven't informed a lot of people about this place. It's just between my brother and my parents. And yes, Ella, we'll come to that in a while. Bonnie contacted me, but I had blocked her from all platforms. I could see her calls and voicemails piling up in the blocked folder. I knew she understood my message. She was no fool. After a while, I got a call from her brother, my friend from college, who introduced Bonnie to the group. I didn't respond to him. He sent me an angry voicemail asking me to talk to Bonnie. It was like, "How dare you ghost my sister for your lust? If you don't come clean, I'll hunt you and your fucking mistress wherever you are. You can't hide from me." WTF? I opened some of the messages from Bonnie and found she was accusing me of cheating with Ella. This was just so disgusting. I was saving her reputation, but she was sabotaging mine instead. Instead of responding to his calls, I sent him the screenshots where Bonnie was discussing with AP about divorcing me. He responded, "Can we talk? I don't understand what you guys are up to." I said I didn't want to discuss this over a call and asked him to meet me in the evening. He came. Calm. I told him I didn't want to involve him because she's his sister. I told him briefly about what had happened between us. Not the kind of details I have rambled on here, but a summarized version of it. He was shocked that his little sister was up to this. He asked me about Ella. Bonnie had told him that I had ghosted her because of Ella. I told him the truth. I didn't need to do this, yet I showed him the emails and chats where I had stopped all communication with Ella after the confrontation. He was not completely on my side, but he wasn't bitter at me either. He said, "I don't know what to do now. I'm at a fix." I said, "I understand, and you don't need to take a side." He asked if I was serious about the divorce. I said, yes, and Bonnie was also planning for the same, so it's better we separate amicably. That's all has happened until now. Update 3. This is going to be a shorter one. After meeting me, Bonnie's brother clarified the matter to her parents. Apparently, Bonnie and her parents were blaming him for introducing me into her life. So he revealed the whole truth, and eventually Bonnie also confessed the same to him. He texted and apologized to me. Bonnie tried to involve her parents and her brother to get a better divorce settlement for me, but they all left her alone to deal with her shit. She demanded a huge alimony, but my lawyer was harsh. Since she was earning quite well, he didn't let her have anything from me. After a lot of to and fro on the settlement terms, the divorce was finalized. I haven't had any updates about her since then. Last week, her brother called me. During the divorce and even after that, he sometimes used to text me, but it was just about checking up on each other. We never discussed Bonnie. This time, he brought her up first. He asked me about Ella. Honestly, I downplayed my emotions and said we were not sure yet. He told me that Bonnie's condition had deteriorated and she had to be taken into therapy. AP has ditched her. There's no better way to say this, but AP realized that she's a swinger who jeopardized her stable marriage into a cheap thrill show, and he cannot trust that woman. He had promised Bonnie that he would divorce his wife once our divorce was settled, but he ditched her at the last moment. Good for him. He dodged a bullet. I'm not sure if his wife knows about this entire thing. Bonnie is not a fool to have not reached out to her. I'm sure she would have. She would have tried all means to destroy AP's life after he betrayed her. But I don't know anything about it, and neither I asked her brother about it. About me, I have settled quite well in this new town. I upgraded my car and have set up the house, not a fancy one, but a cozy, tiny place just matching my taste. Oh yes, I missed out on giving the details about Ella in the last update. So, yeah, we are together now. After my last meeting with her where she wanted to stay out of it, I didn't contact her, but she sometimes used to text me to check upon my well-being. Gradually, we started talking regularly, and I gave her updates about my divorce and stuff. We are not an official couple yet, but I find her very mature and understanding, the kind of person I'm into. We are yet to confess our feelings to each other, but unofficially, we are a thing already, and I think she feels the same about me. She had subtly told me that she's looking for a monogamous relationship, and in no circumstances, she would tolerate any sort of polygamy. I assured her that I'm also of the same morals and that whatever I did in the past was for the sake of my love for Bonnie and to save my marriage. I know she would need time to trust my words, and I completely understand her. I also want to take it slow. Tomorrow is Ella's birthday, and she wishes to celebrate it with the special children in the child care home, and I'll be driving her there. I have made all the arrangements, and it's going to be a surprise for her. I'm sure she's going to love it. She really loves children and is also associated with the NGOs working for children with special needs. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having a good time with her. Now on to the next story. Story 5. A friend cheated on his wife, so I told him he ruined his kids' lives. Now his wife took him back because of my words, and my wife says I accidentally guilt her into forgiving a cheater. My wife is upset at me because of a conversation I had with one of my ex-friends this weekend. I wanted to get a neutral opinion on if what I said was horrible and disrespectful to my wife. Just a warning. I am writing about a very sensitive topic and it may be triggering to some people. I have been friends with Jason, 38M, since high school. Our families are also close and our kids are of similar age. For context, Jason is married and has 2 young girls. Last month, Jason's wife Bree got anonymous messages about Jason cheating on her. She snooped around and learned that Jason was having a 2-year-long affair with one of his coworkers. Bree was devastated and reached out to my wife. My wife and I supported Bree, and she confronted Jason and kicked him out of the house. He is living with his parents now and trying everything possible to talk to Bree and make things right. I was faced with a tough decision but decided to be there for Bree and the kids and cut contact with Jason. He has been messaging me and trying to talk to me since then. Last week, his mom reached out to me and told me that Jason has not been doing well and is having panic attacks, and she wanted him to talk to me. I was reluctant, and despite my wife's protest, I decided to talk to him. He came to my house on Friday evening. My wife did not want to see him and stayed in our bedroom along with the kids. Jason was very apologetic and started telling me how he is so angry at himself and how he broke up with his AP in order to make things right with his wife. He told me that he is also planning to leave his job and would do anything to get back with Bree and see the kids. He wanted me to talk to Bree so that he can at least discuss the situation and they can work on their marriage. I have never seen him cry, and it was just horrible. He started complaining about how Bree has been ignoring him for the last several years and they were having problems and that led him to make such a horrible mistake. I know it's not my place, but I completely lost it on him and told him to stop blaming Bree. If he had problems with her, he should have worked with her to solve it. Cheating on her is the worst thing he could have done to her, and he has no idea how hurt Bree is due to all this. I told him that he not only hurt Bree but also fucked up his kids' lives. They did not do anything wrong and now have to suffer due to his selfish behavior. I told him that I know that husbands and wives may have problems but his actions are punishing his kids, and their lives will never be the same after this. I told him that I am angrier at him that he destroyed his girls' lives and he is a monster if he did not think of them before cheating on his wife. We both argued for a while, and eventually, I told him that I cannot help him in this situation and we will stand in Bree's corner and make sure she and the kids are taken care of. He left after that. My wife was appreciative that I did not support Jason and did not let him blame Bree for his horrible actions. Before sleeping, my wife asked me why I focused on telling Jason that he should not have cheated because of the kids. She said that Bree's life is also destroyed and she is never going to emotionally or financially recover from this for a long time. She feels that the kids are collateral damage, but Bree should be the reason why Jason should not have cheated. I told my wife that from my perspective, I feel worse for the kids because they had such a nice, stable home and Jason fucked it up for everyone. My wife told me that she knows I would never cheat on her, but if I was tempted to cheat, would I stop myself because I love her or would it be because of our kids? We also have 2 girls. I told her that the main reason I would not do it is because I have morals, but if I was playing her game, I would stop myself because I would never want my daughters to go through this horrible situation. My wife was upset at the answer because she feels that she should be the #1 reason why I would not cheat. I understand her point and I love her very much. However, I really want my daughters to have a wonderful, perfect life with 2 loving parents, and that would be the main reason I would never do anything to sabotage it. Am I the A because I prioritize my daughter's happiness over the love towards my wife? Is that a normal thing to do? Or is my wife right and she should always be my #1 priority? Update. I wanted to thank everyone for all your suggestions and comments on my post from last week. The week has been crazy and I am just left numb since what happened yesterday. I can't help but blame myself for the mess that happened. So far, the issue was that my friend Jason was caught cheating on his wife last month, and when I had a heated argument with him last week, I told him that he should have thought about his kids before starting a 2-year-long affair with a coworker. My wife heard the conversation and was upset that his wife, Bree, was the one who was wronged the most, and I should not have told him that his kids should be the #1 reason he should have not cheated. I agree with all of you who said that the comments I made were horrible, but it was just an emotional week and I'm not sure I was thinking about things right. The night I posted here, I had a very long conversation with my wife. I apologized to her for telling her that our daughter's happiness would be the main reason why I would never do anything to hurt our family. I told her that she is the love of my life and how much I value all the things she has done for us. I understand that she is my wife and I made a vow to her to be with her forever. And I understand how my statement was hurtful to her. She was luckily very understanding and told me not to worry about her. She said that she was hurt in that moment but understands how much I love our kids. She did ask me why I even kept on bringing up kids during my conversation with Jason, as that was the point in my argument with Jason where I lost my cool. The thing was when Bree kicked out Jason after learning about the affair. She was a mess. Bree is A and does not have many friends. My wife is probably the closest friend of Bree, and hence she called my wife to tell her about what happened. As my wife went to her place, I volunteered to pick up Jason's daughters and bring them to our house to give Bree some space. Bree was having a mental breakdown since the incident, and my wife chose to stay at her place to look after her. I was watching the kids for 4 nights until Bree was okay enough to take care of them. Jason's older daughter who is it understood what was happening. However, his younger daughter is 4 and was just missing her parents. She is a daddy's girl and kept on insisting to me to call Jason to our place. It was heartbreaking to look at her and feel how irreparably her life will be affected because of Jason's selfish decisions. I just felt very sad inside during the whole situation. I understand that it is Bree and Jason's relationship and I don't get to have a say, but I feel that was the main reason why I reacted the way I did. I feel lucky that my wife understood my emotions and was gracious to support me and not be upset with my unfortunate statements. She told me that she told Bree that Jason came to our home and about my fight with Jason. Bree felt hurt about it but asked my wife if she could come to our house on Friday to talk to me. We met on Friday and Bree asked me about my conversation with Jason. I told her in detail about what happened, how Jason's mom reached out to me and I met him. With that, I told him about how Jason told me he broke up with his AP and was going to leave his job to be far away from that situation. Bree asked me about our fight and why I said things about the kids. I again was honest with her about what I felt. I apologized to her for having opinions, as it was their relationship, but I just said those things in the heat of the moment. Bree asked my wife and me if we think Jason can change, as she is also very worried about the kids and the impact on them. She said that Jason has always been an amazing dad and she is not sure if she can raise the kids without him. My wife told her that what Jason did was horrible and unforgivable, but we do not want to give opinions on their relationship, as only Bree can decide what to do about it. Bree told us that she'd want to talk to Jason and if we could host both of them so she feels safe. Jason and Bree came to our house on Sunday and it was the first time in a month that Jason met his daughters. It was a very surreal moment to see how emotional he got after seeing them. I don't care what all of you say, but I know that I will never jeopardize my family because I would never want to be in Jason's shoes and how broken he looked when he had to face his daughters. There were a lot of tears all around. Bree and Jason discussed things privately. From the gist I got later, Jason apologized a lot to Bree and told her he would do anything to make things right. He told her that he has already put a 14-day notice at his workplace and vowed to never see or talk to his AP again. He told her that she could have access to his phone and he will not take a job where he has to travel for work or stay away from her overnight. All he asked was for a chance to go for marriage counseling and work on things. He also offered that they could move to a different town near Bree's parents and get a fresh start. Bree accepted most of the things, except she does not want to move to a new place. They decided that Jason can move back into their house and they will try to find a way forward from the situation. They both thanked us for mediating between them, and Jason also apologized to me for all the drama and told me that he will do everything possible to heal his marriage and make sure his daughters are taken care of. It all seemed like a good outcome on the surface, but my wife feels that my comments about their daughters may have guilt Bree into taking Jason back. I really did not intend to meddle in their relationship, and I know that they have a long, rocky road ahead if they want to recover from this situation. I just hope that they find the strength in doing that. I wanted to get opinions on if what I did was right in this situation, as I feel I accidentally caused both of them to get back together, and if Jason cheats in the future. I might be the one to be blamed because I talked to Jason first and then my words guilt Bree into taking him back because of the kids' comments. Where OP has replied. Comment 1. I hate to say this, but eventually, when he cheats again or they break up, she is going to blame you and your wife for suggesting she stay because of the kids. Even though you told her that you and your wife would not give your opinions, you already had. Instead, what might have been helpful is letting her know that if he really is a great dad, he'll continue to be one no matter what, even if they are not together. Divorce doesn't automatically mean raising the kids alone, and she should do whatever she believes would be healthiest for her and her kids. Staying for that reason alone often means more pain in the end for everyone, including the kids. The whole reason your wife was upset with you is because you were minimizing the importance of who you actually made vows to. The same thing is happening with Bree and her husband. I could be wrong, but usually, cheaters are cheaters are cheaters. OP. To be honest, this is exactly why I am feeling bad. I did not mean to, but my comments may have guilt her into staying with Jason. I thought I knew Jason for my whole life and never thought he was even capable of cheating on Bree. I don't trust him anymore and am not sure if I can be great friends with him. Comment 2. Tell your wife and Bree there is no statute of limitation. She can leave the scumbag anytime she wants. No reasons other than a scumbag. She should force him to tell Renap partner about the affair, and if they work together, tell the company. He should also tell his family and hers and get a post-nup with a big penalty for adultery. OP. The thing is, I really do not want to be involved in their affairs anymore. I feel Jason is my friend, but it feels weird to give them advice about their own marriage. I do not feel I have any right to tell them what they should do. I know Jason is a scumbag, but I hope that he rectifies his ways and does not hurt Bree again. I would always have it at the back of my mind that Bree might be in a shitty situation because of something I said in the heat of the moment. Told my pregnant SIL her husband was cheating, but my wife got mad, said she'd forgive cheating, and left me. Now SIL lives with me, and we're both getting divorced. I have been married to my wife for 3 years. I am 27 and she's 26. My SIL is 30 and my POSBIL is 31. I always had a close relationship with my SIL. We are friends. I also have a decent connection with my BIL. Not that close, but we often talk and get along. My wife and her sister didn't get along as much as you would expect from siblings. It wasn't just normal sibling rivalry, but constant fights and arguments. Anyway, 3 weeks ago when I was having dinner with my friends, I saw my BIL with another woman. They were just eating. I didn't think much of it. I wanted to go and greet him, but I kept talking to my friends. After a while, I saw that he gave a light kiss to this woman. I was so shocked. I decided to not confront him, and when I got back to my home, I told my wife everything. I told her that her sister is getting cheated on and we need to tell her. My wife said we should talk to my BIL instead of telling her sister, and we should not break their marriage because her sister is pregnant. I was like, WTF? So what if she's pregnant? Her husband is a cheat. I tried to convince my wife multiple times that we should tell her sister the truth. I told her that I know you guys don't get along, but she's still your sister and this isn't right. But she asked me to stay out of it. I tried my best to convince my wife, but she either ignored me or said we shouldn't break their marriage. I had enough of her, and yesterday, I told her that I am coming clean to my SIL. She and I have a great bond and I can't and won't betray her. My wife said if I tell her the truth, she will not talk to me. I replied, I won't talk to you either if you don't want to do what's right. Today, I told my SIL the truth. I went to her place and told her everything. She was doubtful and she asked me to leave. After a few hours, my SIL called me, and she was crying and said what I said was the truth and she shouldn't have doubted me and kicked me out. She said she's leaving. I asked her, where would you go? Do you have money? She said she does, but not that much. I wired her a bit and said she should call me if she needs help. She thanked me and said she will only use the money I sent if it's necessary. Otherwise, she will return it. My BIL called my wife and my wife lashed out on me and said I ruined her family and her sister's life. I said, I thought the moment we got married your family is mine and my family is yours. Anyway, YTF are you defending that POS so much? What about your sister? She didn't reply to me and she's not talking to me either. I tried to talk to her and convince her that it was the right thing to do, but she wouldn't talk to me. So I said, fine, stay angry. And if you want to divorce me, then go ahead. I think I have nuked my marriage. I don't know if what I did was truly right. Update 1. November 7th, 2024. It's been a few days since I told my wife's sister that her husband is a cheat. Just to clarify to all the weirdos. No, I am not in love with my SIL. I don't have any inappropriate relations/feelings for her. I respect her and she's family. In any case, yesterday I asked my wife why she is pissed and wanted me to not reveal the truth to her sister. I know you guys hate each other, but you guys are siblings. My wife said, it's not our place to interfere. I asked, are you okay with her sister being cheated on? She said she isn't, but it will and has ruined their marriage because of my stupidity. She's pregnant and the child needs his father, and so does the wife. I was so shocked when she said this, like, WTF. I asked her, if I were to cheat on you, would you forgive me? She said, yes. I also asked her if she ever cheats on me, would she hide it from me? She also said yes to that. I was so shocked. I asked her if she knows what she's saying. She said yes and she's confident. Just because you had sex with someone else doesn't mean everyone else has to suffer and break the family. I had no words to say. I told her that I also sent my SIL money. She started screaming at me and said I shouldn't have helped her despite knowing she doesn't like her sister. I said, if that's what she thinks, then it's better if we just divorce. She got angry and screamed fine and started packing her bag. I tried my best to stop her from leaving. I told her that I love her and I just did what I felt was right. Nobody has to suffer betrayal like this. She said it wasn't the right time. I asked her, so when should we tell her the truth? After she gives birth, because it will worsen her PPD, or years after she gives birth, she will just blame us. She said we should have just kept quiet and left it alone. I tried so hard to stop her, but she didn't listen to me and left. I tried to contact her and her parents and her friends, but they don't know where she is and instead started interrogating me and saying I am her husband and I should have taken care of her and I should know where she is. I even visited my BIL to confirm my suspicions, but I didn't see her car or her belongings anywhere. I hate that I am being blamed for just revealing the truth and my wife leaving me right away without a second thought. I was so damn pissed, so today I called my SIL and told her that she can stay at my place cause I'm going to my parents and my wife left and nobody knows where she is. She told me she will try talking to her parents, but after a while she called me and said that their parents don't know where she is. I told her to think about herself and come over and stay here instead of blowing up her money. Now I'm at my parents and my SIL is in our home. Maybe I was being petty, but I hate that my wife gave up on me and left without a second thought. I don't know whether she's cheating or cheated or she would truly cheat on me and her own blood sister with a family relative over feuds. One thing is for sure though, I cannot trust my wife anymore. She hurt me. Update 2. November 19th, 2024. Many people ask me for an update and I also do need some outsider's perspective over my situation. So here it goes. But before, I just want to clarify/ask to people who kept calling me names for telling my SIL the truth. Why you guys kept telling me to mind my own business? She's family, and if families don't look out for each other and help, then who else will? Strangers? And it's not just some harmless/small lie from my BIL. It's life-changing. My SIL isn't just my SIL. She's my friend. If I didn't tell her the truth now, then my POSBIL would have just kept cheating and I would lose a friend if I delayed. Anyway, coming back to the update, my SIL only stayed at my place for 2 days. After that, she called me and said she can't trouble me anymore and she's going to live in a hotel. I tried to convince her to not blow up her money unnecessarily, but she didn't listen and left anyway. And yes, I am divorcing my wife. After a week of NC, she called me and said she wants to reconcile. She said she was angry that I didn't listen to her and went behind her back. She said she didn't want to break her sister's family, so she wanted to hide it and convince my BIL to not cheat. But I fucked it all up and she's coming back. I just asked her to come back cause I wanted to talk to her, and it's not something you discuss over calls. Once my wife arrived and started to explain herself, I told her I am filing. She was pretty shocked. She said we can make it work. I told her we can't. I don't trust you after everything you said, and you just left me with no contact and you show up suddenly while I was worried all day about where my wife is or is she safe, etc. I can't make it work. She tried convincing me to not divorce, but I had already made my intentions clear. I told her that her sister stayed at our place for 2 days and she got angry and said, "Fine, let's divorce," and left. I told my SIL that I'm getting a divorce. She wasn't happy about it, but she didn't try to convince me in or out of it. I told her that she can stay with me instead of a hotel. She said it's inappropriate. I just said, either you blow up your money and struggle or you can accept my help. So my SIL and I have been living together for the past couple of days and we discussed our spouses and their behavior. We both got pretty angry about all this. My SIL got even more angry than I was and she ended up calling my wife and called her names. And she told me she's hellbent on to ruining my BIL. She is divorcing him and will go nuclear on him and ask for as much money as possible and child support. She wants to drain him. My wife and I didn't talk to each other after she left and we both know that we are divorcing. My SIL though angry. She calmed down because it's unhealthy for her and her baby and she started focusing on her career and reading stories about single moms. She's preparing herself. So yeah, that's all. And weirdos stay away. Neither my SIL nor I have any feelings between each other. I am just helping her and she wasn't feeling good about it. That's why she was hesitating so much. Call me a moral police, but I know I did the right thing not just for my SIL but for me as well. I now know what kind of woman my wife is. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My ex chose his stepkids over our children, then used child support money to pay his stepson's school fees. Now, his own mother paid his debt, and his stepson got him arrested. Hello, everyone. I'm 33 and have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I divorced their dad when I discovered he was cheating on me with a mom from our younger son's school group. Despite that betrayal, I agreed to shared custody because I wanted my kids to grow up with their father in their lives. However, since the divorce, he's only been around when he's picking them up for visits. He often goes out with his stepchildren but rarely includes our kids, claiming those outings are spur of the moment and can't always include them. Eventually, I stopped pushing, but I've always thought it was unfair that he keeps his distance from our children's lives. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older son's computer, and he asked if we could give his old one to his cousin, my brother's son. My brother has been a huge support for my kids. He's always available to take them to their school events when I can't and often takes them out to the park or for trips when I'm busy. My ex, on the other hand, is rarely available for them. Anytime I ask him to help with an activity, he has an excuse. He's out of town or swamped with work. Ironically, though, whenever his stepkids need something, he's there. Once, he even argued with the stepkid's father at a school event, insisting he had the right to be there. When my ex found out I gave the computer to my nephew, he got upset. He complained that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven 2 months of child support he'd missed since his finances were tight with a new baby. He added that if I could give away a computer, I should have gifted it to either his kids or his stepkids, who shared just one computer among the 3 of them. I told him my finances were none of his business and that I owed nothing to his stepchildren. Then, his wife jumped into the conversation, accusing me of spoiling my son by giving him a new computer and of being petty for letting my son bring it to their house, claiming it was just to show off in front of his step-siblings. I told her she had no right to speak to me that way or question my decisions. I added that I allow my kids to see their father so they can grow up with him in their lives, not so she can interfere with how I parent. My ex was offended, but I told him this whole situation could have been avoided if his wife hadn't inserted herself where she doesn't belong. After that, things seemed to calm down until last week. I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly upset. He explained that he tried reading a bedtime story to our youngest at home. He still likes to be read to before bed, usually by me, his brother, or my brother. And when none of us are around, he listens to audiobooks. Apparently, my ex wanted to make an effort to connect, so he offered to read to him, but our son turned him down, saying he didn't need him for that because he could do it himself. My ex stayed to listen as he searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet, and it hit him hard. The next day, my ex offered to take our older son to basketball practice, but he replied that he'd be going with his dad. He quickly corrected himself and said, "Uncle." That made my ex even angrier, and when I came to pick up the kids, he confronted me about it. I told him that if our kids feel like they don't have a father, he is only himself to blame. He tried to shift the blame onto me, saying I was the one pushing him away from his role. I told him it's up to him to show up for his kids, not something I can do for him. I reminded him he was the one who broke our family, and he's chosen to be more involved with his stepkids than with his own children. I told him not to kid himself. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who he is as a father. If he keeps this up, he can't expect much from them in the future. After that exchange, his mom called me. While she's always been polite to me, I felt the need to say that I would have appreciated this same concern from her when she supported her son's affair, knowing her grandchildren were losing their father in the process. She hung up, and we haven't spoken since. My brother advised me that I had every right to express how I feel, but he suggested that maybe this discussion shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me, saying that if I weren't so difficult, he'd spend more time with them. I told him his duty as a father doesn't depend on whether I'm easy or not, and he knows I've never prevented him from seeing the kids. The truth is, when he has to choose, he prefers outings with his stepkids over his own children, and that's something only he can change. Comments where OP has replied. Custody agreement. The agreement was to split the time 50-50ths. With the new baby, now he says he doesn't have space for both kids and only picks them up on weekends. When they're at his place, he doesn't take them anywhere. The weekend goes by, and he goes out with his stepchildren and his wife. Even when they used to stay with him half the week, it was the same story. The current agreement is that he can have them whenever he wants. To make it clearer, if they want to have breakfast with me on Monday and dinner with him, that's valid. Here's the thing. Now that the agreement is like this, he sees them less than when he was supposed to have them half the time. I don't know if this makes it clearer now, and we're not from the United States. Comment 1. I'm also a bit suspicious about how OP somehow knows all these details about his relationship with the stepkids. That seems suspect. OP says at the end of the post that she's been accused of being difficult. Fine. Her anger is justified. But if she's fought for primary custody or if the ex has to go through her to get things like extracurricular schedules, then she's contributed to this situation as well. OP. My older son is friends with his father's step-siblings and stepmother on Facebook. That's how he has seen and shown me things. I've also found out about other outings because when my mother-in-law called me, she would mention why the kids didn't go to a certain place with their father. She thought I wasn't giving permission and scolded him for lying about me not wanting them to spend time with their step-siblings. Difficult in the sense that I don't want anything more than two parents who respect each other and take care of their children. No favors, no discussions about things that don't concern the kids. There was no custody battle. Comment 2. Your 8-year-old son. I have an 8-year-old as well, so don't try and lie here. Was searching for audiobooks relating to 8-year-olds who don't have a dad unprompted on his own? You expect us to believe this? OP. I wasn't there. That's just how my ex told me about it. I didn't mean it literally, more like when you search for kid stories and see what pops up. That's how I saw it. Why my son searched for it like that, I have no idea. I asked him why he used that title, and he just said he wanted a story. Update 1. November 21st, 2024. These past days have been a bit unusual. Hey guys, first I want to thank all of you. I didn't expect to receive so much advice, and I never thought this app would be so useful. It's not very popular in my country. Now back to the topic. My ex sent me messages saying he wanted to resolve things, stop arguing, and talk to me. I agreed. He came to my house, and we didn't beat around the bush. We went straight to the point. He asked me if I really thought he was a bad father. I replied that, looking back now, I never would have chosen him to be the father of my children. He said it wasn't easy for him, and I answered that it wasn't easy for me either because I take on both his role and mine. He told me he couldn't leave his stepchildren without a father because he had already broken their family, and I replied that he had left his own children without a father. He started crying and told me it was my fault, saying that when the infidelity happened, I refused to forgive him or go to couples therapy. I kept telling him things. I'll admit they weren't kind, but none of them were lies. He asked me if, given his current state, I didn't feel sorry for him, and I said no. He told me he didn't think I could be so cruel, and I replied that, when I changed jobs, pulled my kids out of school 2 months before the end of the term, moved houses, and watched him disappoint our kids over and over again, any empathy I might have felt turned into apathy. He left after that. His mother called me and said she knew what I had told her son, that he hadn't stopped crying and that she didn't understand how I could carry so much hatred to hurt her son like that. She said I should just get over it. I answered with all due respect. What I said wasn't out of hatred but out of truth. If your son is crying, it's because he's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Maybe instead of worrying about how he feels now, you should have taught him to take responsibility and treat people with respect. She said I didn't know what it was like to feel a mother's love and see a child suffer. And I replied that I did understand because I have 2 children who cry over a living father, 2 children who see their dad being a father to other kids when he doesn't have time to be their father. She said he was sorry, and I told her not to put words in his mouth and to stop calling me about anything related to her son. I hung up. I wanted to cry so badly, but I'm a damned mother and I don't have time for that. I want my kids to feel safe, loved, and strong enough not to need anyone, not even me, to be themselves. Last Thursday, I took my kids to their cousin's birthday party, hosted by my ex-sister-in-law. I still have a good relationship with her. She was the one who told me about the infidelity and that her mother was already encouraging it. My ex showed up alone and irritated. My kids kept their distance from him. They kissed his hand but then ignored him completely. My ex-mother-in-law told the kids they should show more respect to their father, and my eldest replied that he doesn't show respect for me since he and his partner talk badly about me. I scolded my son, not for what he said but for how he addressed his grandmother. I told him it was wrong to eavesdrop on private conversations and repeat them. Then I asked him to gather his things because we were leaving. My ex-mother-in-law asked me not to leave, saying the kids were having fun and we could resolve this as adults. She asked my ex what he had said, and he claimed not to remember. I told her I didn't care, and she said we should be good parents. I replied that, to be good parents, you need to be good people first. My ex was getting agitated. My ex-mother-in-law asked why we couldn't have a civilized co-parenting relationship. I told her everything I've mentioned here about his free will to see the kids and how the second custody agreement isn't working, since he only sees them some weekends. My ex didn't want to discuss it, saying he had too many kids at home. My ex-mother-in-law told him the only kids who should feel comfortable are his, and the comfort of the others should be provided by their biological father. My ex wanted to end the conversation because his mother was scolding him for being a careless father. He also said it was my fault. I asked him to clarify. How is it my fault? You can see the kids whenever you want. What more do you want? He started yelling, claiming I was only being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than him and had fewer kids to feed. I told him I wouldn't continue the conversation and that I'd show him what being uncivilized looks like by filing for the overdue child support payments. His mother asked what I meant by overdue payments. I explained that he was 3 months behind. She was furious, slapped him, and demanded to know what he had done with the money for his children. He answered, I couldn't let Junior miss out on attending the same school as my son. I didn't want him to feel inferior. My ex-mother-in-law said she couldn't believe it, and they started arguing. I left. Yet for context, my youngest son attends a private school, and my ex pays for his stepson to attend the same school. Yesterday, my ex-mother-in-law came over and said she would pay the overdue fees. She brought the money in cash. I knew my ex would be furious. Here's some context. My ex-mother-in-law doesn't work, doesn't own anything herself, and lives with my ex-sister-in-law. However, she does have significant savings from her inheritance. If she pays the tuition, my ex knows there won't be much left for him when she passes, even though she's still healthy. He's been asking her for years to invest some of that money in his business ideas, but she's always refused. My ex's retaliation was not picking up the kids this weekend. Yesterday, my ex-sister-in-law called me. She doesn't know all the details yet, but apparently, my ex's 15-year-old stepson punched him in the mouth. She said she'll let me know exactly what happened once she finds out. And before anyone asks, the new custody agreement will likely take a year to finalize. The court says the overdue payments are the priority, and the rest can wait. We have more urgent cases. Comments where OP has replied, MIL, she knew about the affair. When I say she wasn't rude to me, it's because she never showed displeasure towards me or was a bad mother-in-law. I was surprised that she was a cover for her son during the divorce. She didn't take sides and has always been a good grandmother. Comment, is kissing hands a thing in certain cultures? Never heard of that. OP, it's not about literally kissing hands. In my culture, when you see your parents, grandparents, uncles, and godparents, you ask for their blessing. It's like saying, Shaun, short for the word bendin, blessing. It sounds like can, as in father or the blessing father. School. When I found out, I was furious. My son goes to that school because the cheating scandal rumors were spreading at his old school, and I wanted to keep away from it. Update 2. November 22nd, 2024. A promise is a promise. As I mentioned earlier, my ex's stepson had an altercation with him because my ex refused to let him go out. Now I have more details. My ex's stepson had plans to go bowling with some friends. His biological father had already given him permission and money for the outing. However, when he told his mother, she said he couldn't go because they needed him to stay home and watch his younger siblings. My ex and his wife had planned an outing and needed someone to stay with the kids. This led to an argument. The boy raised his voice to his mother, and my ex stepped in to demand that he respect her. The boy replied that he wasn't his father. Trying to maintain authority, my ex told him that as long as he lived under his roof, he had to follow his rules. The boy ignored him and turned away. My ex followed him and touched his shoulder to get his attention. At that moment, the boy turned around, punched him, and shouted that he wasn't his father and could never compare to him. The mother scolded him for his behavior, but the boy, still angry, shouted back that he hated her. This version was shared by my ex and his wife to my ex-mother-in-law. My sister-in-law later related to me. They went to see my ex-mother-in-law to try to gain her sympathy and convince her to take care of the kids, the 2 stepchildren and the baby, so they could go out. However, my ex-mother-in-law told them she would not take care of the children. When I spoke to my ex, he mentioned he was dealing with family issues and claimed that the boy's biological father was turning him against him. He didn't give me many details and admitted most of what my sister-in-law had shared. He simply informed me that due to the situation, he wouldn't be able to pick up our children this weekend. The 15-year-old boy is now staying with his biological father. As for what I mentioned earlier, my ex was 2 months behind on child support, and that same week he was supposed to make another payment. He didn't, leaving him 3 months behind. In the end, his mother was the one who covered the overdue amount. Regarding the child who attends the same school as my son, it's not the 15-year-old involved in the altercation. It's his younger stepbrother who is 8 years old, the same age as my son. I decided to enroll my son in that school when the affair became public. At the time, I was working as a kindergarten teacher at the same school, and the boy had been one of my students. We all knew each other, and to protect my children from rumors, I transferred them to a private school. This happened 2 months before the school year ended. Thanks to the circumstances and the support of some kind people, we managed to get them admitted. Update 3. November 26, 2024. The discussion was about how I could afford private school tuition on a kindergarten teacher salary. To clarify, I am no longer a kindergarten teacher. I am a high school teacher, and salaries and education vary significantly depending on the country. In my country, salaries in education are quite competitive compared to other jobs. Micro businesses, $280. Small businesses, $315. Medium-sized businesses, $350. Large businesses, $370. My field, education. Early education, kindergarten $800 to $1,000. Primary education, $900 to $1,100. Secondary education, $1,100 to $1,300. Secondary education with 5 years of experience, $1,300 to $1,400. Associate professor, master's degree $1,500 to $1,400. Full professor, doctorate $1,400 to $1,750. The cost of living here is affordable, and I mentioned that in several comments. I am not from the United States, where life is more expensive. In my country, this salary is more than enough to live comfortably. I am not rich, but my kids enjoy an excellent quality of life. Private school tuition varies. There are schools as low as $120 US dollars per month or less. And of course, there are elite schools that are much more expensive. We use local currency, not dollars. I also have other sources of income that are irrelevant here. Now, to stop the speculation, people assumed I was from multiple countries, calculated my monthly tuition costs, and even tallied up all my expenses. The only thing you missed was calculating the cost of my divorce. Let me save you some trouble. I didn't pay a single cent, and my ex left with nothing but the clothes on his back. Careful not to choke on that. As for my kids not being well cared for, my kids are perfectly fine, and as long as I'm breathing, no one will take that away from them. I saw a lot of concern for my children, but here's a question for you. What about your kids? Are they okay? Did you pay what you owe for their care? When was the last time you saw them? There's no need to worry about my kids. If any of those users want more details, feel free to contact me, and I'll happily send over some bills for you to pay, since you're so interested in my finances and expenses. And regarding my divorce, it was far from amicable, not because of custody, that was never an issue, but because my ex lied at every turn to delay and obstruct the process. I didn't accept it then, I don't accept it now, and I never will, not in a million years. For those still questioning my divorce, here are my words to you. Once there's infidelity, there's no family left. This clarification isn't for those who offered helpful comments or advice on my post. End of the informational break. Now for the actual update. The day after my post here, my ex was arrested for domestic violence and child abuse. The father of the boy involved filed a complaint. My ex's wife defended him, claiming that her son was a brat and that this wasn't the first time her son had been violent with him or his younger siblings. This left me surprised because, as far as I know, my ex had never mentioned that the teenager had been beaten. My ex-sister-in-law said that her brother, meaning my ex, never brought it up. I asked my kids if their stepbrother had ever touched them or been violent with them. Both said no. My children are comfortable telling me anything, and their answer was no. My ex and his wife have since changed their story about the incident. Now their version is that the boy misbehaved. My ex tried to talk to him, and the boy hit him first. So the mother hit her son to pull him off. My ex-child protection authorities here are usually very strict when a case interests them or when the harm suffered by the child is severe. I haven't seen the teenager myself. The teenager has been placed in a shelter for abused youth. Edit. When physical abuse of minors is reported, they are transferred to a safe space until a gazelle chamber interview and a forensic medical evaluation are conducted. Once a safe environment is confirmed, they are returned to the parent. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Parents secretly brought my brother to my wedding without telling me. So I made a toast revealing how he slept with my ex years ago. Now his pregnant wife filed for divorce. This is going to be a long read, so I apologize in advance. I, 32M, got married to the love of my life, Meg, 25F, last week. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, though it involved some drama that could have been avoided, to be honest. And because of what happened, my brother might be going through a divorce. Hell has descended on me, and the family is hounding me day and night, asking me to make things right. But I genuinely do not feel that I am in the wrong, which is why I have come to you for opinions and insights. I do not share a good relationship with my brother, Colin, 34M. We used to be quite close as kids, at least as close as you would expect two brothers to be. It wasn't perfect. We had our share of fights, even as kids, but it was never a strange sibling relationship. I had his back, and I knew he had mine, so it was all good between us. Our parents always put family before anything and tried to instill those values in us as well. It's a shame I was the only one who reflected these values. 6 years ago, when I was 26, I started dating a girl, Shay, now 32F. I was madly in love with her, and everyone around me knew that. She was part of the same friend group I was hanging out with at the time, and I was obsessed with her the minute I saw her. To me, she was the complete package. She was gorgeous, tall, eloquent, and just stunning and smart overall. I was so taken by her that I completely overlooked all her toxicity, and boy, was she very toxic. The moment I started dating her was the moment drama completely engulfed and overtook my life. She was a great girl, but she was not the right girl for me. We were not compatible at all. I was very non-confrontational, and she was the exact opposite. She loved drama, lived for it. In fact, there was a new fight every other week for something very random and trivial in my eyes. But I was crazy about her, and that's why I kept ignoring all the red flags. 6 months into dating, I found out she was cheating on me with someone from her workplace. I found out by accident and was devastated. I confronted her, and she kept denying it until she finally broke down and admitted everything. I was heartbroken, but she apologized profusely. She said she had made a mistake and would do anything to gain my trust again. Stupidly, I believed her. I gave her another chance, even though I knew I shouldn't. I have always believed that cheaters never change, and I have never been proven wrong. All through my life, I have known cheaters in various capacities, and none of them could change their ways. I knew all that and still gave her a chance because I believed, or rather, wished, that this time it would be different and she wouldn't be like the others. I was wrong. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. I started trusting her again and felt that maybe we could get past the incident and build a new life together. 3 or 4 months after I caught her cheating, I started getting this nagging feeling that something was wrong. She was acting shady and suspicious. I didn't have any proof, and I didn't want to believe she was cheating again, so I rationalized her behavior in my mind. But it kept festering until I finally asked her if something was going on or if she had something to tell me. She became very defensive and said I was suspecting her for no reason and that if I had decided never to trust her again, I should have told her, so she wouldn't be wasting her time trying to earn my trust back. She basically gaslighted me into believing I was being paranoid and that nothing was wrong. I believed her. I know, I'm a mess, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A few weeks passed, and she was still acting weird. I didn't have any proof, but all the overthinking was driving me crazy. So I started checking her phone without her knowledge. I should have known that was the point where the relationship had ended. I didn't trust her at all, and even if I hadn't found anything on her phone, the fact that I thought her capable of doing something like that should have been enough to make me walk out. But I'm glad I snooped around because I found something that changed my life completely, and it's never been the same since then. It took me a while to figure out what was happening, but when I did, it felt like someone had slapped me across the face. Basically, she was cheating on me and had been for a while, but not just with anyone. She was cheating on me with Colin. I have never felt the hurt I felt when I saw those texts. The two people who were supposed to be the closest to me were the ones doing me dirty in the worst possible way. I couldn't believe what I read. It just made me want to sink to my knees and bawl my eyes out. And that's when Shay entered the room and saw me with the phone. She started yelling at me, telling me I had no business invading her privacy, but I just showed her which chat I had open, slammed the phone on the wall, and went outside. I think I walked for around 3 or 4 hours. She called me a couple of times, but I didn't respond. When she realized I wasn't going to talk to her, she made Colin call me. He called me once and then left a couple of texts saying things like, "I want to explain, and it's not what you think," but I wasn't having any of it. What I had seen was enough proof, and I wasn't going to deny my own eyes. I went back home and texted Shay to collect her stuff from my place the next day. She called me again, but I didn't answer. For the next few days, I was pretty numb. I wasn't talking to anyone. She got her things and left without a fuss, which I was grateful for. Colin didn't try to get in touch after that, and how could he? What could he possibly have to say to me after what he'd done? But I think a week or so later, I called up my parents and told them exactly what had happened. I also told them that Colin was dead to me and that I wouldn't be coming home when he was around. They were hurt by the situation, but they supported me initially. They also took Colin to task and stood by me for the first few months. From what I know, Colin got really defensive and told them Shay and he were in love, but they weren't having any of it, and I'm very grateful for that. I just cut Colin off completely and went to therapy. In therapy, I realized how toxic Shay was for me, and that's when I began to genuinely believe that God had actually saved me through this whole fiasco, even though it hurt like hell. I moved on from that incident gradually, but I never forgave Colin and never spoke to him again. A few months later, I met Meg, and the rest is history. We started dating, and it was easygoing and peaceful with her. Unlike the drama-filled relationship I had with Shay, I didn't tell anyone in the family about Meg until a couple of years later when we had decided we wanted to get married. She knew all about my situation with Colin and that we were estranged, and she knew about my apprehensions of introducing her to my family. When I introduced her to my parents and told them we were engaged, they were delighted. They were also relieved, I guess. They congratulated me on finding someone and said they were happy for me. They also said to my face they were even happier because now we could be a real family again. I asked them what they meant by that, and my mother said that now that I had moved on from Shay and Shay weren't dating anymore, Colin and I could now put everything in the past and move forward as brothers. I was shocked and hurt that she could even suggest something like that, but I tried to be respectful and look at things from her perspective. I told her that while I knew she thought the issue was automatically and miraculously resolved because I had moved on and Colin and Shay weren't dating anymore, the fact of the matter was that my brother went behind my back and slept with my girlfriend. I told Mom that there would never come a time that I would forgive him or that I would move past this. It wasn't about Shay. It was about how Colin could betray me like that. Mom got angry when I said this and told me I had to realize that no matter what happens, Colin and I are family, and as brothers, we have to stick together no matter what. I told her this little family lesson should have been given to Colin too, that we stand by each other and remain loyal to each other no matter what. I told her he was the one who wronged me, and I was the victim, so I got to decide whether or not I wanted to forgive him. It was getting pretty heated between Mom and me, and Dad came to my rescue. He told Mom to drop it and not force me to do something I wasn't comfortable with. Mom agreed, but I could tell she was salty about it. Dinner was awkward, and Mom tried to rope in Meg and get her to make me see sense. Meg just said she believed I was capable of making decisions for myself and that I would forgive Colin in my own time if that ever came. Mom was practically seething at this point. I don't know why or how she thought I would just forget something like this and move on, but she had this fantasy image of how our family was and would be forever, and she did not want to accept that the farce was broken and there was no way now that the family would go back to the way it was all those years ago. Dad told Mom that there would be no further discussion on the topic, and she agreed. Things were tense between us for a while, but they got better gradually. She didn't bring up Colin again and tried to be very mindful of boundaries, so I had no reason to complain. Little did I know, my parents were planning a little intervention and were all geared up to ruin my wedding. Mom was involved in the wedding planning, as was Meg's mom. She knew how many guests were coming, the dress code, the preparations, and the like much in advance. My dad wasn't very involved in the process. Mom did nothing suspicious during the entire planning period. Colin was not mentioned even once. She even apologized to me, saying she shouldn't have pushed me so hard that day and that she had begun to believe there was a chance at reconciliation but realized she was wrong because Colin had wronged me in the worst way possible. So there was no reason for me to suspect her or doubt her intentions. But I was wrong. On the day of the wedding, my best man, Rick, 32M, a friend of mine from school, came running to me, saying there was a problem I needed to deal with right away. I asked him what was up, and he said that Mom and Dad had arrived at the venue with Colin and his wife. I was livid. I told Rick to make them leave, and he said he tried to do everything without creating a scene, but they refused to budge. He told them Colin wasn't invited and that I would be furious upon seeing him. But my mom said their family and Colin is my real brother, unlike Rick, and I would always choose Colin over Rick. Yeah? Right, Mom. Totally. I couldn't believe they had planned all this behind my back, and I needed an explanation from them immediately. I called my dad and asked what the hell was happening. He said they didn't want the family to believe there was a rift between the two brothers, which is why they thought it was best to bring Colin and his wife along. He asked me to just put up a farce for a couple of hours, then they would leave and pretend nothing happened. He said he knew I probably anticipated this, but this was in the best interest of everyone, and it wouldn't hurt me to play along for the sake of the family. I told him he had betrayed my trust, just like his beloved son, especially when he knew I wanted nothing to do with Colin. He told me to stop being dramatic and suck it up for one day. I told him this one day was my wedding day, and he had no right to ruin it. He told me no one was ruining anything and that my flair for theatrics needed to be toned down a little bit. I should have asked him why this family pretense was so important to be done during my wedding when no one bothered to do the same for Colin's wedding. I didn't even know he was married, but I was too furious to think straight, and all these ideas just popped into my head later. At the time, I was just feeling blind rage. I wanted to go over there, grab them by the collar, and throw them all out. I didn't care if it would cause a scene, and I didn't care if it tarnished the family image. I just wanted them out. I couldn't think straight when Rick came to me with an idea that was much more vindictive and much less violent. He told me there was only one way to get back at everyone, and if I was okay with it, it could be done. The idea seemed good to me, but it was also too much drama for a wedding, and I didn't want to ruin Meg's day as well. I told Rick I would think about it and let him know. The wedding went without a hitch, but Meg had seen Colin and his wife and asked me what was up. I told her in brief what had happened. Once the ceremony was over, I took her aside and asked if she was okay with me doing what Rick and I had planned. She was a little hesitant but said if that was what I needed to do to put my family in place. There was no better time or place than this and that I had her complete support. I thanked her, God, I love my wife, and I told her to just sit back and enjoy the drama. When close friends and family were seated together, some people got up to make a toast. Rick started the whole thing because our plan was for me to make a toast to Colin and tell everyone how it was because of him that I met my wife, because he slept with my ex-girlfriend, leading to a breakup. It would be brutal for Colin and for my parents because I would be detailing everything in my toast. But they deserved it. Colin did for being a piece of garbage, and my parents did for having no regard for my feelings and the hurt I faced. They only cared about the image of the family and society, and Colin and I was going to tear both to shreds in front of the entire world for all to see. Once everyone was done saying things about Meg and me, I got up and said I had a toast to make, too. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I'll give you the gist. I started by saying I wanted to make a toast to my dear brother, Colin. The minute I said that, he and my parents turned white as a sheet. His wife, however, looked only confused, and I had a hunch she didn't know why Colin and I were estranged. And to top it all, she was heavily pregnant. That part made me mad, too. Why was he at my wedding parading his pregnant wife around? It seemed to me he just wanted to steal the thunder, nothing else. Anyway, I continued with my toast. I said Colin and I had been brothers for the longest time, and even though he stabbed me in the back in a way worse than an enemy, I still wanted to thank him because it was his betrayal that ultimately led me to Meg. I went on to detail how I first found love as a 26-year-old man with a girl who wasn't right for me, but I was young and naive, so I overlooked all her flaws. It was only when she committed the worst act that I took the decision to leave her, and then I dropped the bomb on everyone present. I said my ex-girlfriend had cheated on me with my brother, and that was the last straw that made me break up with her, go on a journey of healing, and find my wife, Meg. I didn't spare my parents either. I said I had held a grudge against Colin for the longest time, to the point that we hadn't been in contact for 5 years. But I was glad my parents had chosen to bring him and his wife in secret, so I could finally express my gratitude to Colin for doing what he did and orchestrating the right events in my life. I know my parents were humiliated, but that's what I wanted. They had trampled over every single boundary of mine, and I was not about to let them off so easily. The gasps from the crowd were audible, and it looked as if my mother would start crying right there. There was no way to diffuse the situation. I had said it all for everyone to hear. Colin's wife, I don't even know her name, was looking at him in disbelief, and Colin couldn't look up and meet anyone's eye. It was utterly embarrassing for him, and neither Rick nor Meg nor I did anything to make the situation less awkward. My parents were sitting there staring at the ground. Dad was twiddling his fingers, and Mom was trying her hardest to stop crying, but even her faintest sniffles were audible. The room was that quiet. I felt like I could hear my heartbeat in that eerie silence. I just sat down after my toast and started eating. Everyone was staring at Colin and my family, but nobody said anything. Finally, it was his wife who got up, apologized on his behalf, and thanked us for having them and allowing them to be a part of the celebration. And then she stormed off. I kind of felt bad for subjecting her to this humiliation for no fault of hers, but I couldn't help it. I had to take Colin and my parents to task, and it's a shame she got caught in the crossfire. My parents and my dear brother left soon after, and only then did the real fun begin. However, my parents, especially my mother, have bombarded me with texts saying I had no right to air the family's dirty laundry in public and that I had torn their dignity to shreds in front of everyone. I didn't respond because I wanted to enjoy at least some of my wedding. Mom has since then started texting Meg, and I know it's getting to her. I told Meg to block Mom, but she just keeps texting her from new numbers or messaging her from new accounts on Instagram. All this negativity is affecting Meg poorly, and I feel bad that I subjected her to this. She doesn't deserve it. She's the one who saved me, and I've dragged her down to the dumps with me, and that's just not right. I have asked Mom to stop involving Meg in the drama, but she says I was the one who involved her by causing that scene during the wedding, and now both Meg and I will have to face the repercussions of what I've done. I know it's no use arguing with my mother because she's stubborn, and nothing I say will make her see sense. Plus, I can't expect her to because what I did was vindictive. I just feel bad that because of my little revenge trip, my wife is suffering, and that's the last thing I want for her. I don't know how to get my mother off our backs, and I feel like I've caused more trouble than it's worth. Update 1. I got a call from my sister-in-law, Amy. I didn't have her number saved, so I picked up. She was very nice and apologized profusely for calling without prior notice. But she said she wanted to meet me and hear my side of the story because what Colin had told her was very different. She begged me not to tell anyone in the family she was coming to meet me, and I told her that I don't talk to them anyway, so she was fine on that front. Honestly, I was in two minds about this, but Meg said we needed to help her out because she was going to have a child and she deserved to know the kind of person Colin really was. Even though this is going to cause more trouble, I know Meg is right. Amy isn't at fault, and she needs to know the truth. I can't play a part in ruining her life when she's never wronged me. I agreed to meet her, but I'm very nervous. This has spilled over far beyond what I had anticipated, and I think it's not going to end well for Colin. I don't feel bad for Colin. That piece of garbage deserves every single bad thing coming his way. I just don't want to be part of family drama again, and especially not drag Meg into it. I hope it goes well, though I know it won't. I saw Amy's reaction to the whole outburst during the wedding, and I know this drama won't end with me meeting her today. Update 2. The meeting went okay, I think. I felt so bad for her. She came alone and she's pregnant. It seems like the baby will come any minute. It looked as if she'd been crying. Thankfully, Meg was there too, so she eased the situation a little. I asked Amy if she had any questions, but she said she wanted to hear the whole story again. I told her exactly what happened, how I found out, how I confronted him, and everything. I also told her how Mom was pestering me into making things normal between Colin and me because of family. I asked her what story Colin had told her, and she said Colin had said that Shay and I were friends, but Shay fell for him. I couldn't accept that because I secretly had feelings for her all along, so I broke off my friendship with him, and it was only a year after I stopped talking to her that Colin and she got together, and even then just briefly. I told her that was a complete lie. I don't know how long they dated because I never bothered to ask or find out. I asked her if my parents had told her the same story as Colin, but she said no. She said Colin had told her it was a very sensitive topic for the family, and since I had cut everyone off, my parents didn't like talking about me. It was very rare for me to be mentioned whenever she met Mom and Dad. I asked her if they had invited her to the wedding, and she said it was mostly Mom pressing them to go. Amy said she didn't want to attend because they hadn't received an invite, plus she knew about the bad blood between Colin and me. But Mom basically blackmailed both of them into attending. Colin didn't want to attend either. She said Mom kept saying we needed to let bygones be bygones and be a family again for the baby. She thought maybe I had indicated to Mom that I wanted Colin to be there, so she never tried to confirm with me. Also, she never thought the reality would be so different that it would completely turn her life upside down. I felt really bad for her, but there wasn't anything else I could do. I've told her to let me know if there's any way I can help her. I don't want her to suffer just because my brother is a horrid human being who not only betrays his brother but also lies to his wife. I think she's going to go forward with a divorce because she seemed pretty upset about the whole thing. I just hope it works out for her. It's not easy being a single mom out there. Update 3. Amy has filed for divorce. My dad called me up and informed me. And unlike Colin and my mother, he isn't blaming me for everything that transpired. He just said Colin was going through a rough time right now and he might try to call me and get in touch, but he's asked me to stay away. I told him I had been staying away until they decided to bring him along to my wedding. He didn't say anything to that. Apparently, my mom and Colin are trying to get in touch with me, but they've been blocked everywhere, so I'm safe from their onslaught. I don't know the actual details of the divorce, but I do know Colin isn't taking it well because he really loves Amy. I think karma has finally come back to bite him in the butt, and I can't help but feel a little smug about it all. I feel bad for Amy and Meg, and I think we're going to offer her help when the baby comes, but I don't feel an ounce of guilt or remorse for Colin. He deserves it. He broke me once on purpose, and now he's broken himself. That's just how it is when you betray someone's trust and wrong them. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I wasn't invited to my daughter's wedding because I wasn't good enough, so I exposed her in-laws online. Now, their business is suffering, and the wedding is cancelled. Hi everyone. I, 50 female, have a 26-year-old daughter, Megan, who is supposed to be getting married to her fiancé, Reggie, in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately for me, Reggie comes from a very influential family, and they believe that I don't belong at their wedding, which is why even my daughter has turned against me. I have raised Megan all on my own ever since she was around 10 years old because my husband died in a road accident. I did have a couple of relationships in the last 16 years after my husband had passed away, but my main goal was always to make sure that Megan got the best of everything and that I was able to give her the life that my husband would have wanted. I thought that I had done a good job raising her on my own, but now I'm not so confident about that anymore. A few days ago, she came to my house and told me that she had a discussion with the family, and all of them thought that it would be for the best if I stayed out of the wedding. Reggie comes from a pretty wealthy business family, and they own one of the biggest PR agencies in the country. So naturally, they do get to be in business with a lot of industry hotshots. When she visited me last, Megan told me that after speaking to her fiancé and his family, all of them thought that I was just not going to fit in with the rest of them. Not only would it be awkward for everyone else, but most of all, it would be awkward for me. So, keeping that in mind, they had decided that they would have a private ceremony just for the family later on. But at this wedding, where everyone was invited, I wouldn't be present there since somebody like me just wouldn't fit in at the actual wedding. I couldn't even understand what on earth that was supposed to mean because it's not like I am some uncivilized gorilla who doesn't know how to behave in public and is going to embarrass them. So I knew that it had to be about my financial situation. I guess that Reggie's parents had probably wanted him to get married to somebody who belonged to the same tax bracket and were already disappointed enough that he had chosen Megan, since she definitely did not belong to the same kind of financial background. They had made their peace with that somehow, but I guess they were just not ready to accept that they would also become related to me after the marriage. And I should have guessed that this was going to happen right from the beginning. I told my daughter that I might not be as well off as them, but I made the best of my situation, and I raised her completely by myself. So I would say that I'm just as great as them. And even if I don't have a huge business of my own, I'm content with what I have. I've been a realtor for most of my life and have made a decent amount of money in my lifetime, and I still have a couple of good years left in me, so I have no intention of stopping. So she should let them know in case that's embarrassing them. I told Megan that I was a hardworking individual, and I could see that she and her fiancé and his family had no respect for me just because I was not earning as much as they were. And all of a sudden, just because I was not as rich as her fiancé and his family, even my own daughter refused to acknowledge my existence at her wedding. I was heartbroken, but I was not going to let go of my dignity. So I told her that I was not going to be attending the wedding if that's what she wanted. She tried to talk to me after that and explained to me that this was not personal, but I had no interest in hearing her out, and I told her to leave because I just didn't even want to speak to her anymore. It had become very clear to me that in the last 3 years that Megan had been dating Reggie, she had been completely brainwashed by him and his family, and now she believed that money was everything. I was very disappointed in her. So I did something that now, in hindsight, I'm not sure it was the right move. Anyway, the day that she visited me to tell me that I wasn't going to be invited to the wedding, I was very upset and disturbed, and I couldn't bring myself to do anything that day. But the next, when I woke up, I decided that something had to be done and that this kind of disrespect could not go unanswered. I decided to go online and post about what had happened on Facebook. I did not spare any details, spoke quite freely about what had happened, and about how I felt in this situation. At the time, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, and I still don't really think that I screwed up, but maybe I shouldn't have acted so hastily. Anyway, after I made that post, I didn't actually expect anything to happen, but I had tagged Reggie and his family members in the post. Now, his family is quite well known, so when people saw that post, of course, they started gossiping because nobody expected them to act like this with the mother of the girl that their son was marrying. After posting it, I decided to go about my day as usual, and a couple of hours after that, I started receiving multiple messages and phone calls from Megan's father-in-law-to-be. He had started begging me to delete that post and undo all the damage that I had caused to their reputation because people had started texting them to let them know that they were very disappointed in their behavior and they had expected them to turn out to be so elitist. I had only answered one of his phone calls, And before I could even say anything, he started begging me to take the post down because since he owns a PR firm, his reputation is very important to him, and his entire business would collapse if word got out that he had been treating people like this. But after hearing him out, I simply said nothing and hung up. Yet he continued to message me. Some people had even said that they wouldn't be attending the wedding because they wanted to show their support for me by doing so. And when I opened Facebook, I saw that I had a bunch of comments, and really supportive ones at that, from a lot of people who I didn't even know. I truly had not been expecting a reaction like that, and it kind of validated my feelings. So I contacted Reggie's father and I told him that I would not be taking the post down because he and his family had brainwashed my daughter. And they had really insulted me by telling me that I would not be invited to their wedding because they did not think that I would belong there. So now, somebody like me was going to show them their place. After that, I blocked the numbers he had been trying to contact me from, and I didn't feel bad for him in the slightest. But then, Megan called me up, and she was sobbing on the other end. Now, no matter how mad I am at her, I'm still her mother, and I started feeling terrible because of how violently she was sobbing. I could tell that she was really distressed, and in spite of myself, I couldn't help but try to calm her down and console her. She told me that she knew that I was disappointed in her and that what she had done was not the right thing to do. But she was just in a very difficult spot with Reggie and his family, and she thought that I was going to understand. She kind of dropped a lot of hints that maybe Reggie's family had insisted on not inviting me to the ceremony, and that's why she had been pushed into a corner. But still, being my daughter, I would have expected her to fight for me, and I was upset that she had given up so easily. Anyway, after a point, she told me that now what was done could not be undone. But the least that I could do was at least take that post down because it had created a lot of trouble in the family. And even though I was the one who had done it, everyone was pointing fingers at her. She tried to reason with me and told me that this power trip was eventually going to cost her relationship. And being her mother, surely I would want to forgive her for her mistakes and not continue to take my anger out on her even after knowing what kind of difficult situation she was in. And at that moment, I had to make a decision, and I decided that I was not going to take that post down because I was really hurt. I deserved to get my side of the story out there, so Reggie and his family would know that they couldn't treat people like crap and then get away with it. I tried to explain that to my daughter, but Megan started crying even more and said that she was exhausted from having to pull off this balancing act all the time because on one side she had Reggie and his family, and on the other side, she had me. Obviously, she wanted to value all of us equally, but no matter how hard she tried, it just wouldn't work out, and she was just sick of it. So then she told me that I was ruining her relationship just because I wanted to get back at Reggie's parents. Then she had nothing more to say to me and hung up. Now, I feel really bad, and I'm not sure about whether I should take that post down or not. So I'm here to ask you guys if I am a jerk for making a post that exposed my daughter's fiancé's family for being elitist. Edit. Alright, a lot of people seem to think that I was a bit all over the place in my original post and don't really understand exactly why Reggie's parents don't like me. So I'm going to try and be as clear as possible in this edit. And I'll also try to provide a little bit more context so people can come to a conclusion. Basically, since his parents are quite well off and are very class conscious, they never really liked me because I did not belong to the same tax bracket. Just to be clear, as I mentioned in my original post, it's not like I can't afford anything, but I lead a life like most normal people do, and I guess that they just can't stand the fact that in spite of being significantly below them in terms of my finances, I'm still not treating them like they're anything special. Megan had told me that at the beginning of their relationship, Reggie's parents had not even liked her and had thought that she was a gold digger, but eventually, she had broken the ice with them. So I already had a fair idea of what kind of people they were, but nevertheless, when we met for the first time, I tried to be as cordial as possible, and I was my usual friendly self. But I guess they did not like that because later on, Megan told me that Reggie's parents had told him that I was a bit too frank for their taste and thought that I did not have any idea of how to conduct myself among people of their social class. I thought that it was a very unfair judgment because by then, Megan and Reggie had been together for almost 2 years, and I thought it would be nice to try and be friendly with them. Anyway, after that, I realized that they probably expected me to treat them like royalty, and I wasn't ready to do that. So whenever I would meet them after that, I would try to be civil to them, but I wouldn't speak to them much if I could avoid it. And so the relationship between me and Reggie's parents had already been pretty strained. So that's why in my original post, I said that I wasn't surprised and I should have seen this coming right from the beginning. Anyway, Reggie's parents and I have always had problems, and even though I've always treated Reggie well, I don't think I can say the same for Megan's in-laws. They have always been kind of cold with my daughter, and even though that was in the beginning, and she really wants me to believe that they have changed and have warmed up to her, I refuse to believe it because if they really had accepted her, then they wouldn't have forced her not to invite her own mother to the wedding. Update 1. Hello, everyone. So I last spoke to Megan a couple of days ago, and I had told her that I was not going to take that post down because I didn't think that it was necessary. The post had stayed up, and the comments had continued to pour in. I was quite happy with what was happening because apparently it was not just me that they had been treated terribly, but even some ex-employees had started commenting about how they had been treated while they had been working in Reggie's family business. So in a way, I think I had done a good thing by exposing them for the kind of people that they are. And even though I knew that Megan was really upset with me and would probably not speak to me, I decided not to give in to the pressure because even she had disappointed me with her actions. It was a very tough call to make for me because after her father had passed away, it was just the two of us against the world, and she was the one person in my life that I never thought I would lose. But here we were, not speaking to each other, and I really didn't know what to do. I had pretty much made up my mind that I was not going to speak to her until she apologized, but I hadn't blocked her or anything because I wanted to keep that door open. And last night, Megan decided to text me, and when I received that notification, I thought she was going to apologize, but she was only telling me that she and Reggie were considering postponing the wedding until all of this had blown over because my post had created quite a stir. And his family did not think that getting married right now would be the right move for their image. Apparently, Reggie's father was even planning on coming after me legally, even though he did not have a legal leg to stand on because this is technically not even defamation since this is something that actually had happened. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just texted her back saying, "Thank you for the heads up," and I left it at that. So then she replied to me to ask if I really had nothing to say about the fact that she and Reggie might have to postpone the wedding, something that they had been looking forward to for the past couple of months, just because of my post. I started getting frustrated at that point because I felt like Megan was only thinking about herself and Reggie but not about me. And I know that at this point, I shouldn't even be surprised, but it still hurts. Anyway, I decided to ignore that message, but she texted me again and said that she needed an answer from me because after everything that had happened, the least that we could do was be honest with each other because I owed it to her, since I was the reason that her wedding and even her relationship was at stake. That message really got under my skin because even after everything that happened, she believed that I was the one who owed her something. So I typed out a message in the most sarcastic tone possible that I was really sorry she was in so much trouble because of me, since I should have known that she was a spineless puppet of her fiancé and his family, and it was obviously not her fault that they had manipulated her into not inviting her own mother to the wedding, the same mother who had raised and supported her all on her own. It was obviously my fault that her grandparents were just common folk and not business tycoons. Had that been the case, I probably would have been invited to the wedding. Unfortunately for her, she got stuck with a commonplace mother, and that was the root of all her troubles. After that, I did not want to hear from her, so I muted her and decided that I was not going to speak to her until she apologized to me in person. Even if she does that, I'm not sure if I'll be able to go back to having a normal relationship with her since this is all just ridiculous. Update 2. So since I had muted Megan days back and had not been responding to her messages, Reggie decided to call me up today. He sounded very upset, but I tried not to feel too bad for them because when it had really come down to it, neither of them had defended me and stood up for me, and he had very obviously chosen his parents over me. So I had no reason to sympathize with them. Even then, I did answer the phone call because he called me about 4 times before I finally picked up, and I tried to be as civil as possible with him. He started off by telling me that he and Megan were really sorry, that they had not been able to convince his parents to let me be present at the wedding, and the most that they could do for their actions was apologize. But they couldn't exactly go back in time and change it. So it would be pointless for me to keep that post up because now the entire family was gossiping about them and they were thinking about canceling the wedding entirely. He told me that I knew how much this wedding meant to Megan because right from her childhood, she had been crazy about weddings and would always dress up as a bride whenever she was playing. Even up until recently, she had been so excited to get married. But now she was not even sure if that was going to happen anymore. The only solution to the problems would be for me to take that post down, and then maybe his parents would take the initiative of speaking to me in person and try to sort things out with me. But until I took that post down, nobody was going to back off. His dad had even started speaking to an attorney, and he asked me to delete it just for my daughter's sake. Once again, it was very difficult for me, but I had to tell him that I was not going to do that because this had come to a point where if I took that post down, it would be admitting that I was giving up. It would be like admitting that I was going to let my daughter, him, and his parents walk all over me without any consequences, and worst of all, it might seem like me backing off, and I was not willing to do that. I didn't even care how petty or immature it seemed, but at this point, if his parents were not apologizing to me, then I did not see the point of taking that post down. Reggie got a little worked up and he told me that there had been enough consequences of that post, and now it was pretty pointless to let it stay up. I was only letting it stay up out of spite and nothing else, and I agreed with him. I was keeping that post up because I wanted to teach his family a lesson, and even though I had already accomplished that, I didn't think that it was going to mean anything until they had apologized. It was very little that I was asking for, and if he couldn't even get his parents to do that much, maybe they didn't love him as much as they thought. So instead of asking me to do certain things out of love for my daughter, maybe he should be asking his parents to do it for his sake. And I don't think he had expected me to turn the entire argument around on him. So he started to fumble his words and stuff, and eventually, he just resorted to emotional manipulation. He told me that he had always considered me as one of his parental figures ever since he had come to know me. And even I had acknowledged the fact that he was like a son to me. So I should think about him and my daughter, and I should think about their happiness. It was really ironic to me that he was playing all these cards without actually thinking about what he was saying, because if he really had considered me a maternal figure and considered himself to be like my son, then he would have stood up to his parents when they had said that they did not want me at the wedding. Not even my daughter did that, let alone him. So if I couldn't even expect that much of them, it was ridiculous of him to expect such things from me. And I told him that no matter what he said at this point, I was not backing down, and I was going to make sure that I got the apology that I deserved. I also told him that instead of wasting his time arguing with me and trying to reason with me, he should probably be speaking to his parents, because if this actually does go to court, they will be in a lot more trouble than me. I don't have any disgruntled ex-employees out to get me as well, but they do, and they will definitely testify against his parents if I approach them. And that means that their company will take an even greater hit than it already has. He tried to accuse me of blackmailing them, but I was only giving them a heads up. Anyway, after that, he was pretty much just grasping at straws. So I hung up and I told him that I did not want him contacting me anymore after this unless it was to apologize sincerely. Not these fake apologies where they would only say sorry because they expected me to take that post down and make it all right with his parents just so that they could get married. Update 3. Hi everyone. It has been 3 weeks, and I still have not taken that post down, and ever since I had that last conversation with Reggie, neither he nor Megan have tried to reach out to me either, and obviously, his parents have nothing to do with me. But today I noticed that Reggie and Megan had posted that they were supposed to get married in 2 weeks, but unfortunately, that would not be taking place anymore and the wedding had been postponed indefinitely. They said that they were still together and they were going to be together for the foreseeable future, but due to unavoidable circumstances, the wedding had to be postponed. I didn't know how people had reacted to that information because comments had been disabled on that post. If I'm being honest, I do feel kind of bad for them because even though they had treated me badly, I'm sure that it was very difficult for them to come to the decision to postpone the wedding as well. Although, I'm not even sure how much of it was their decision, since I'm pretty sure that his father and his PR company had a lot to do with this move. They care a lot about their image and reputation and will do anything to protect it. So in all probability, that's a huge part of the reason why they had to postpone the wedding at all. Anyway, over the past couple of weeks, I have received hundreds and hundreds of messages and emails from several people who have been treated badly by Reggie's parents, and to my surprise, it's not just ex-employees. They even cut ties with a bunch of their family members who did not fit into the image of a perfect aristocratic family. For instance, Reggie's father does not speak to his brother anymore because he has stepped away from corporate life and instead, he wanted to work on a farm and that's what he still does now. But unfortunately, Reggie's father does not think that is respectable work, and so they have not been in touch for several years. I didn't even know that the man had a brother. That's how they treat him. It's very strange to me that in spite of having grown up with money, they act like it's the only thing that matters and are willing to cut people off if they don't fit in with the image they are trying to cultivate. I guess that on some levels it makes a lot of sense that they own a PR company because they are so incredibly shallow that superficial appearances are all that they care about. Personally, I'm glad that they don't like me because I guess I'm too real for them, and I think my lucky stars that they hated me enough to completely ruin their relationship with me because now I never have to talk to them again. And even if my daughter does get married to their son, I'm going to make sure that I keep my distance from them, all of them, not just as parents. Update 4. Hey everyone. So several months have passed since I made the post against my daughter's future in-laws, and their business might have recovered, but unfortunately, it came at the cost of their relationship with the kids. As I had guessed already, the reason that they had to postpone the wedding was because Reggie's parents believed that it would be bad for their image to get married while they were in the middle of so much controversy. However, I guess they just got sick of waiting, and after about 3 weeks, they just did not want to be caught up in our fight anymore. So the two of them decided to elope and posted it online without letting anyone know. That was another controversy and eventually that ended with Reggie's father disowning him. But I don't really think he cares because he and Megan have decided that they're going to start their own business and they might not make as much, but they're going to be happy. I know this because about a month ago, they came to my door to apologize to me. They told me that they had been antagonizing the wrong person and did not want me to feel like I was the villain anymore because I really wasn't. If anything, I was the only person who made sense, and they were really sorry about everything that they had put me through. They confessed that they had been brainwashed and manipulated by Reggie's parents, and he did not want to lose out on the fortune that his parents would leave for him as inheritance, which kind of makes sense because I don't think I would have given that up if I ever had been in his place. But eventually, he realized that he was turning into his parents, and Megan also felt terrible about these things. So they had decided to try and make things right with me. They did not care about the inheritance anymore, and all they wanted to do was repair their relationship with me and live life on their own terms because they were sick of being Reggie's parents' puppets. It took me a while to forgive them, but eventually, I did so because even when her dad had passed away, I did not have anybody other than my daughter, and even today, I don't have anyone other than her. And this time, I felt like that apology was genuine. They did not expect anything from me. They didn't even expect me to forgive them, but I still did. We are trying to work on our relationship because obviously, there are a lot of cracks here, but I hope that we'll be able to make it work. I'm happy with the way things have turned out, and I'm hoping that they will get better in the future. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My best friends invited only my boyfriend to their wedding and not me, even though I've known them for 6 years. For context, I, 23F, have known this guy, 24M. I guess I'll call him Roger, for 6 years now. He and I were put into a musical ensemble together our first year of college and we stayed in it for 4 years. This group is also where I met my boyfriend, 24M, and where my boyfriend met Roger. Also, there were a couple of other guys in the group and we all were, and have remained, pretty good friends, especially since the other 4, including my BF, are in a band together. They continued after college. I wasn't excluded from this group. I just really wasn't interested in the time commitment, so I declined to join. When they started out, they have actually become pretty well known in our local scene. They're a really talented group. Anyways, on to the current situation. Roger has been with his fiancée, 22F, since before I met him, and when she came to the same school we were, and all the rest of us in the group became pretty friendly with her. I wouldn't really consider her a friend. We have no beef as far as I'm aware. We just aren't really close and we only really talk at shows. I do like her though, and we always make a point of saying hi to each other when we see each other and have a friendly chat. So my BF and I have known these guys literally the same amount of time. We spent all of college with Roger, seeing each other at least twice a week for this group, although it was usually much more, and we still hang out with them sometimes outside of the band scene. So Roger is getting married to his fiancée this summer. I of course wished them both congratulations when I heard the news of their engagement a couple of months ago. We got the save the date in the mail. It was addressed to only my boyfriend, which I thought was a bit odd. But it was only the save the date, so I didn't really think much of it and put it on the fridge. Well, last week the wedding invite came. It was again addressed to just my boyfriend. We opened it and there was no indication of even a +1 or anything, which I really don't think I should be a +1 for my boyfriend. I feel I should be invited on my own merit. My boyfriend said they maybe just addressed it to him because we live together. But like, that's exactly my point. We live together. So if it's for both of us, it should be addressed to both of us. Otherwise, I assume mail addressed to him is his. I'm honestly incredibly hurt by this. I guess it's fine if they don't really see us as friends, but I still feel like the fact that they know my boyfriend and I both live here and they know I'm expecting to be invited, seeing as everyone else from this old group is, makes this feel like a real punch in the gut. Update 1. Am I supposed to go to this wedding or not? August 14th, 2024. Hi everyone. So to summarize my previous post, we have friends, unsure on that one, getting married this weekend. The question of my last post was about the fact that my name was not on the invitation that was sent to my fiancés in my apartment. My fiancé and I met each other at the same time as we met the groom, and we got together about a year and some later. We worked pretty closely in a musical group throughout school, and then my fiancé and the other members of that group decided to continue and form their own band. I was not excluded from this, just was not particularly interested in the time commitment, and I don't regret the decision because they are busy mother effer. But, being that my fiancé and I are still together, I still see the groom and his bride to be quite often. We've never had any beef as far as I know, and we always have friendly conversation and say hello to each other, like each other's stuff on Instagram and whatnot. Given the background of our relationship and the fact that my fiancé and I have lived together for 3 years, and they sent the invitation to the apartment that we share, the fact that my name was not on the invitation says to me that I am not invited. My fiancé kept trying to say like, oh, maybe they didn't know they were supposed to put your name on it too, or insisting it was a mistake because maybe someone else wrote the invites, to which I told him they would have written the invites based on the names they were given. I asked if I would be an a-hole if I asked them why I wasn't invited, to which I was told I would be, and I was probably right, I wasn't invited, though others did agree on how insanely rude it was of them. I accepted that answer, and while I still feel the whole thing was rude, I've let it go and I don't plan to talk badly about them or to them or cause any drama, because it's up to them who's at their wedding. They won't be at mine. My fiancé accepted I was right about the situation after another person from this group also recently sent out save the dates for his wedding, and both our names were on the invite, and I pointed out to him a month before we'd received an invite from one of my fiancé's friends I'd only met a couple times, and both of our names were on the invite. But I digress. The purpose for today's post is that the wedding is this weekend. For some reason my fiancé keeps asking me if I'm going. Apparently he asked the groom and he was told verbally that I am invited. But given the fact that my name was not on the invitation nor was it on the save the date we received earlier, I really can't just go off of that as enough evidence that I'm welcome there. I really believe that if I was invited after my fiancé asked why my name wasn't on the invitation, one of them should have reached out directly to me if they actually are expecting me to show up. But they haven't. And for some reason my fiancé believes they're expecting me to be there, and he keeps saying he doesn't want to have to explain to people why I'm not there, and I keep telling him there isn't anything to explain. I wasn't invited. But here is where I'm conflicted. I truly do not want to start drama surrounding their wedding. I respect their decision not to invite me if that's how they want their day to be. I don't think anyone should ever have to invite somebody to their wedding that they don't want to. But I also am fully aware that there are going to be several people there who are close to my fiancé and I as a couple who are going to wonder why I am not there, and it may cause a fuss if anyone asks the bride and groom directly, which I realize may come off as main character syndrome. I don't really think people will be that concerned about where I am, but my F and I go everywhere together. So my absence will definitely be noticed by our friends. And some of them aren't good at knowing when to just let things be. And so I genuinely have no idea what to do here. Here are the options I can see right now. Take my fiancé's word for it that they do want me there despite everything saying the opposite and show up, risking being unwelcome and possibly upsetting them on their wedding day. Don't go. Come up with a fake story for my fiancé to tell everyone so that nobody will try to go poking for gossip. Don't go. Tell my fiancé to either just state the truth that I wasn't invited, or he can come up with a story on his own if he's not comfortable with that. I'm leaning towards option 3, which honestly does feel kind of petty, and my reasoning is that if they didn't want people to ask why I'm not there, they should have invited me to be there. Which definitely is a bit petty, but I just don't see why I should lie for them when they don't even respect me as my fiancé's long-term partner who they have spent many years getting to know, let alone as a friend to them. What do you guys think? Is there another option here where I don't feel like I'm being an a-hole, while also avoiding coming across as an a-hole? Or is this one of those situations where I can really only have the high ground if I cover for them because it's their wedding day? Any thoughts and advice welcome, please and thank you. And feel free to ask any clarifying questions if anything doesn't make sense, or if it seems like anything is missing. Smile. Also, there is one detail I couldn't quite figure out where to fit in here. But when we initially received the invitation, the second envelope for their wedding, addressed to just my fiancé, I talked to a friend of mine about it who vaguely knows who the couple is because I wanted to ask someone who wouldn't bring it up to them if I was overreacting, and she ended up telling me last month that she found out a different friend of hers who was really good friends with the bride all through school, and thought they still were friends was also not invited. I don't know if that makes much a difference in the overall take of the situation, but it does seem relevant. Edit. I wanted to ask them for clarification, but since I've never been in this position before, I wanted to ask others who maybe have more experience with weddings how I should ask. Everyone said that I would be an absolute a-hole for even considering asking as it's their wedding, and it is obvious I am not invited, and putting them in that position to have to tell me that to my face would be wrong. Instead of getting mad at me for asking for advice on handling the situation, you should have joined in the first time I asked, and then maybe the reaction you would have received would demonstrate to you why I thought it was inappropriate to ask. Edit to add. Thank you to everyone who had actual advice and helped me figure out the right decision to me. To everyone who's being super condescending about me not asking them, how would you feel if you didn't invite somebody to your wedding and then they confronted you about it? I get you should be upfront with them, but some people just don't want to risk the drama, and I guess that's fine too. It's their day. It's not really my place to kick up a fuss about it. If it turns out that it was a mistake, then they can explain that to me and we can laugh about it and move on. But if I am in fact right, it would be really shitty to them to make a fuss about it when the day has nothing to do with me. This isn't about this generation too scared to talk to people. It's actually about having common courtesy to realize when it is appropriate to make a situation about me and when it is not. This is one of those situations where it is not. So I wanted to know the best way to make sure I uphold the fact that I don't want to be a source of drama for them surrounding their wedding. I did get a lot of good perspectives about possible mistakes that could have happened here, and I'm super happy to accept that as a reality if they explain that to me. But for right now, I'm just going to quietly accept the situation as is and find something fun to do this weekend instead. Update 2. August 19th, 2024. Hi all. This is not a very interesting update, but several people asked for one, so I thought I would just explain how things went yesterday. So, first of all, I'm very glad I didn't go. My fiancé was quite unhappy when he came home from the wedding and told me I was on to something. Turns out I was not the only partner that was missing. But my fiancé is still a bit confused by the whole thing because it struck him as really weird who didn't have their partners there. Plenty of people did ask about me and where I was. My fiancé just kind of generically told them I couldn't make it. But the bride and groom did not ask about me. Though the groom came up to my fiancé and said something about "can't wait for your wedding," which is what made him realize I was right about the whole thing. None of the bridal party, many of whom we know well, asked about me, which also stood out to him considering how many of the guests did. One thing that strikes me as odd is that my fiancé confirmed there was no designated seat for me, but there were a lot of empty seats. Which leads me to wonder if they knew how entirely confusing and weird this was, and they were preparing for people's spouses that weren't invited to show up and play it off by having a seat available. I don't know. That's pretty much it. The whole thing honestly feels even more confusing after the wedding, but I do at least think it's pretty clear that I was right and made the right decision in not going. No real drama happened, and I'm not going to really bother to try and find out more from them or from anyone else. But it is disappointing, to say the least. My fiancé is pretty disappointed too to find how little these friends respect not just me as a person, but me as his partner. But that's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. I really just wish they had been direct, even if the reason they gave was a lie, that I wasn't invited. I would have understood if they said it was a matter of numbers. But the way they went about this just seems so pathetic and cowardly to me. But it appears as if we weren't the only long-term couple that did this too. So I think it says a lot more about them than it does about me. Thanks to everyone who gave advice and offered different perspectives. I'm super thankful I posted here because you guys really helped me feel confident in my read on the situation, and you all helped me make the right decision to avoid the most drama or embarrassment. Comments. Did the groom ask where OOP was and just invite the groom's wife to OOP's wedding? He didn't ask where I was. He said to my fiancé he was excited for our wedding but did not ask about me, and no one in the bridal party asked him about me, even though plenty of our other friends did. Which leads me to believe they all knew I wasn't invited. If he had asked where I was before or after making that comment, then I think it could be interpreted the way you're suggesting. But he did not ask about me at all. Just made a comment about expecting an invitation to our wedding, even though I wasn't there at his, and he didn't seem to think that was strange. Edit. We just got engaged at the end of June, so we have not set a date yet. It's not as though they received an invitation to ours already. But he expects to be at ours even though he and his wife did not deem me worthy enough to be at theirs. Her fiancé sees the best in people and why he went to the wedding. He is, and he does. It's something I love about him. But I do feel sad that he had to go and see for himself. I imagine it was a bit more hurtful to him to realize it then than if he'd accepted it before and chosen to stay home. I don't fault him for going, and I understand why he would think they wouldn't do this. I also was surprised, and on the other hand, if this was just some major etiquette blunder and they would have asked about me, then the misunderstanding could have been explained there, and it would have been harder to clear if we both skipped it. But at least now we both know these aren't people who respect us, and we can move forward accordingly. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Discovered my wife cheating on me after she went out at night with her best friend. So I caught her red-handed with her AP. So my 27M wife, 24F, often goes out on a Friday night with her best friend and usually doesn't get back until 4 a.m. The place she goes to closes then, so no big deal. Every time she's been out, she's always come back. It does slightly bother me that she's out every Friday and never gets back until so late, as we do have 3-year-old twins, and it seems irresponsible. But that's for another discussion. Anyway, this Friday, she went out as usual, and I woke up and she wasn't there even though it was 6:30 a.m. So I texted her and called her to see where she was. She had not sent a single message to me all night and had not indicated in any way that she would be staying out. So naturally, I was worried sick. Roll forward to 8 a.m. and I got a text saying, "Sorry babe, I stayed at a friend's house last night." Now I know this person, and I wasn't too bothered, just slightly pissed off that she never thought to say anything before. Roll forward to Saturday night. I was on her iPad as we shared it, and suddenly these strange messages came through from her best friend saying, "Where did you go last night? I'm so upset that you just left me." Now I was confused as to why she would have said this, as I assumed she had gone to her other friends with her. So yes, I know this was wrong. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened up Messenger to see what was going on, to which she said to her friend that she stayed over at some lad's house. Now, obviously, I was super pissed reading this, and all sorts of thoughts were going through my head, and I confronted my wife about it. We argued, and it was mostly her saying how she regretted doing it and how she was so drunk she didn't know what she was doing and that nothing happened. I slept on the sofa that night as I was so angry and upset. I didn't even want to see her. Yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I confronted her again and basically said, I need the truth. She came back saying that she swore on our kids' lives that nothing happened, but still, I can't stop thinking about it. What are the chances of someone going back to someone else's house after going out drunk and just falling asleep? It just doesn't seem to add up, and I don't know what to do. I understand the general consensus is divorce. I understand why, but divorce is a massive thing. Not just for the effect on me, but on the kids, too. If I didn't have kids, I admit this would have been done long ago. A lot of people have been asking if she's always been like this. In short, no. It started 3 or 4 months ago when she got a new job and met her new best friend. Her job is stressful, and she was diagnosed with depression, which is half the reason I allowed it. I don't own her, so I don't see why I get to allow her to do anything. Looking at it now, I've been a pushover, and that ends now. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Fiancé came out as bisexual and wanted to explore with other women, so I agreed to open our relationship. Betty, 27F, and I, 30M, got engaged in January after dating for a couple of years. Our plan was to get married next year when we had saved enough money for the wedding. Shortly after getting engaged, we moved in together at the end of January. In May, Betty was a bridesmaid for one of her friends. I was unable to attend due to my job and the fact it was a 5-day trip. Betty had a great time reconnecting with some of her old friends, but a couple of weeks after she got back she became moody and withdrawn. I was relieved when she made an appointment with a therapist since she hadn't opened up to me about what was troubling her. After about 5 or 6 sessions, she sat me down one Saturday morning so we could talk. Betty had been raised in a very conservative household and had to suppress her desires until she moved out to go to college. Even then, certain ideas she denied and refused to embrace. At the wedding, she was introduced to the wife of one of her girlfriends from college, and it triggered a lot of repressed desires. Over the days they all hung out before the wedding, she told me she felt romantic and sexual attraction to women as well as men and realized she was bisexual. I told her I was happy she finally felt safe in sharing this with me, and it didn't change how I felt about her. It was a very emotional moment. She asked me how I felt about her exploring her sexuality now that it was out in the open. I said I was open to exploring it with her and possibly having a threesome with another woman to let her have that experience. She wanted a one-on-one experience with another woman and felt she couldn't do that with me present. I told her that sounded more like an affair and something I wasn't comfortable with. I asked her if she wanted to cancel the wedding and maybe separate while she figured out what she wanted to do. She was adamant that was not what she wanted, and she was still very much in love with me and still wanted to get married. But she felt like she had to explore these feelings she was embracing before we settled down together. I asked her if she had done anything inappropriate at the wedding and cheated on me. I asked if she had someone in mind or had been talking to someone since she came back. She admitted to dancing with a girl at the reception and they kissed at the end of the night, but nothing else happened. But she denied talking to anyone or pre-planning anything. She knows this was a lot to throw on my plate all at once, and she didn't expect an answer right away. She just asked that I keep an open mind and keep talking about it. I couldn't promise anything, but I agreed to do some research and talk to a workmate that has an open marriage to see how they cope. I did warn her if I found out she lied or was doing anything behind my back, there would be no second chances and I would leave. My workmate has been super helpful and open about their relationship. My brother got me into a support group that has helped me come to terms with our relationship changes. I'm burning my way through my second book and sat Betty down Thursday night to check in and talk about moving forward. I found us a couples therapist. I gave her the book I had finished and I told her we should postpone the wedding for 6 months and then decide if that's the path we are still on. I was on a roll when she stopped me and asked me if I was planning on dating other people. Like that never occurred to her that I would be dating as well. She kind of shut down after that, barely giving one-word answers when I would ask her something. I think the longest sentence I got was, "I just don't know." She has been like that for 24 hours now, like she is lost in a fog. I'm just bracing myself for the inevitable flood of emotions. I would have thought she would be happy that I was considering opening our relationship. Update 1. Saturday night. Her fog lifted and things got pretty heated. She said that the open relationship was my way of punishing her and being vindictive by dating other women. She was just asking for some grace to explore her feelings. I replied that she showed almost no remorse for cheating on me and instead expected an open-ended hall pass to do so again. I told her our friends had told me she asked them not to say anything about what happened at the wedding, so I would probably never know the full truth and just had to accept it was worse than she admitted to. I asked if she thought it was fair to go have sex with other people while I waited by the door like some lovesick puppy who was expected just to wag his tail when she decided to come home and show me some attention. It devolved after that and some hurtful things were said by us both. I finally gave her 3 options if she wanted to move forward. Monogamy, postpone the wedding and go to couples counseling. No experimenting. When we get to a good place, then go ahead with the wedding with a prenup to protect me if she changes her mind and cheats again. Open relationship. We can both date who we want and she can figure out her sexuality on her own terms. In a year or so, we can see if marriage still seems like a good option if we are still together. Full separation. She moves out and we can each be free to live our lives as we see fit. When she decides she wants monogamy with me, if I haven't moved on, then we can try option number 1, but it would be a new beginning, not just picking up where we left off. She decided she needed some space to think things out and is going to stay with friends for a couple of days. I told her before she left that if she accidentally cheated while she was gone, to not come back except to pick up the rest of her things. This morning, I got a text from her. I'm so sorry. She didn't answer when I asked her what she meant and my call went to voicemail. I'm not going to reach out to her again and I will wait to let her contact me when she is ready. Comments. GBDS. Looks like your partner has been a bit self-centered about this. Good idea to take your time regarding your engagement. The death of exclusivity, even as a hypothetical, can be a pretty destabilizing thing for an established mono relationship. Keep talking. You seem to be handling this very well. Somewhat better than her, I think. I tried to handle this respectfully, but it seems fair to her is an open pass for her but not for me. I'm expected to support her while she has sex and possibly develops feelings for someone else and just smile and nod. And then she got upset when I had to remind her she was the one that cheated. I just finished printing out cards to send to everyone we sent the save the date notices to, advising them we are canceling the wedding. Not sure how I'm going to respond when they start asking why. The cards I'm sending out just have "due to new circumstances" on them. Update 2. August 18th, 2024. On Wednesday, Betty went to her previously scheduled appointment with her therapist and told her what happened between us. Not sure what all was said, but she called me on the way to her friend's house apologizing for some of the things she said and wanted to come home and talk things out. I told her to stay at her friend's house tonight and think about what she wanted and she could come home Thursday and we could sit down and work things out. On Thursday, we met at the house and talked over dinner. We both apologized for getting heated and saying some unfair things to each other. After talking to her therapist and having several conversations with her best friend over the last few days, she has decided not to explore her bisexual urges. The idea of a truly open relationship where I was free to sleep with other people terrified her, and getting married was more important than chasing the rainbow. Her original idea had been just a free pass to see if she was missing something in her life and how important it was to her. I asked what was she asking for? Just dating a woman or having a full relationship? She couldn't tell me exactly what she wanted. I said that didn't sound very monogamous to me or very fair. She agreed, and that was why she was giving up on exploring those feelings. Next, she brought up the notes I sent out canceling our save the date notices for our wedding day. She said she was getting all kinds of calls about what happened and was caught unaware about what they were even talking about. At first she was upset I did that without talking to her first. I reminded her that she lobbed 2 grenades in my lap, coming out as bisexual and that she cheated on me, then left and wouldn't talk with me except for a cryptic "I'm so sorry" text followed by silence. While I never said anything other than we were having issues and had to postpone the wedding, evidently there was speculation that she had cheated on me. She switched gears and said we could still get back on track and get married next spring. No, because now when one of us is out of town, my mind will be thinking about you cheating again, especially after coming out and wanting to have an affair to explore your sexuality. I said maybe after couples therapy we could get back to a good place again, but not by the end of the year, and it would be foolish to start planning and making financial commitments before we even knew if therapy was going to work. Plus, I wanted a prenup to protect everything I brought into the marriage as well as my future retirement savings. Plus, she would forfeit any equity if we bought a house. When she protested, I said if you plan to be faithful and not change your mind later, then it would never be a thing, just something to give me some peace of mind. It's been ongoing conversation for the last few days. Betty wants to rug sweep the incident at the wedding and move forward with our wedding. Exploring her sexuality is not worth sacrificing our relationship, in her opinion. For now, we are back together and planning on counseling soon. In a post-clarity moment, I realize I rushed to embrace the idea of an open relationship to allow Betty the freedom to explore her new feelings, and I'm not as willing now to consider that option. I think separation is the better option, breaking up if you will, until we both decide what direction our future lies and if it is with each other. It's not what I want, but I also don't want to spend the next 3 to 5 years together only for her to change her mind or cheat on me one day. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.